This is episode 5 of Objectively Biased. What's going on, everybody? This is Wilder Adams alongside John Tortorelli and River Brown. And today we got some pretty good topics coming in. We're going to talk about some of the NBA teams who are having above average, below average starts, see if they're real or fake. Is Lamelo Ball a losing player? And some rookie stocks, who is rising and who is dropping. So what's going on, guys?
John, get to it, man, because we know you got that Steelers jersey on. John, I never wavered. I just want to let that be known.
The Steelers this week. I was proud of you, man.
I never wavered. Even one time you took the Colts, I took your Steelers. I never wavered.
I took the Steelers in that game too. Anyways, before we start today's episode, we got a lot to talk about in the NBA. I'm wearing a Steelers jersey. And the reason why I'm wearing a Steelers jersey is because I need to put it out there into the universe. The Pittsburgh Steelers just got off to an 8-2 start. Big divisional win against the Ravens today. The Steelers have not been this good since 2016. The last time they went to the AFC Championship game. And I'm watching them today going up against a contender in the Ravens, which is number 1 in points per game this year. The Steelers defense stifles them. They basically shut down Derrick Henry for the majority of the game. And the offense looks like it's got some life. Hasn't been perfect, but for the most part, our run game is really good. The offensive line's been strong. Russell Wilson's playing well. And as a Steeler fan, it's rejuvenating to see my team be 5-0 against winning teams. Because the end of the season, we play 3 good contenders. We got the Eagles, we got the Chiefs, we got the Ravens again. We've got 4 divisional games. I just could not be having a better day, and it's for that one reason only. So pretty excited right now. I'm happy to be here.
John, you're beating us? You guys are going to beat us?
The Eagles?
Yeah.
To be determined. We got a couple of injuries. Alex Highsmith, Keanu Benton, Joey Porter. But if we're healthy, we'll win that game.
You what?
I'm confident we can win that game.
Okay. We're gonna butt fuck you guys. Like it's
you guys look great. You guys look good. Top 2
family show.
It's not even gonna be funny. Yeah, it's not even gonna be funny what we're gonna do to you guys. But
we'll see.
Two very teams. This is a podcast of winners. I'm just going to say that the Minnesota Vikings 8-2, the Steelers 8-2, the Eagles 8-2. And the Minnesota Timberwolves, I'm coming off of an emotional high watching Julius Randle, my glorious king, hit a game-winning step-back 3. King Julius, I am proud, and I'll probably be heartbroken in about 4 days. So I'm just going to ride the adrenaline right now.
What's in 4 days?
We play again on Thursday.
Oh, back-to-back the Suns again?
No, we play Toronto, so we better win that game. But I'm struggling with PTSD right now from those 2 Portland games a few days ago. I watched Denny Avdia hitting step back, buzzer beater 3s, and I wanted to jump off a bridge that moment. So
yeah, Scoot had like his best game in like a year. I think it was the first game, was it? Like, it was a lot of voodoo going on. I don't know. You guys y'all went to Portland. It was just like, nah, this ain't it.
What's in the water in Portland, man? My dad has always said that he's not a fan of going to Portland. It's his least favorite city in the country to work at outside of Cleveland. I don't know what's wrong with each city, but he was just like texting me after the game like, I effing hate Portland. I hate everything about that SHIT town. And I was like, okay, Dad, okay. But it's okay. Well, it's November basketball, so it's November basketball. I like Portland, so if any people who are searching for broadcasters in Portland, I am a huge fan of the city of Portland. So that's my dad's opinion. It's not my opinion. So I just want to put that out there. But yeah, so we got a lot going on in sports. I just kind of talked about some of the voodoo that goes on in November basketball, and we're going to go straight into it. So there's a lot of teams who are overachieving, underachieving right now. 3 of the 4 teams that made the conference finals last year aren't looking too good relative to expectations. So we're just going to start out by talking about some real and fake teams. And John, give me a team that you think is either real or fake you think is notable.
Oh, man, putting the pressure on me early. So I'm going to talk about a team that I think is real, but they've been disappointing. They've kind of been, I guess you could say, average. This is a squad that was points away, a game away from the conference finals last year. That's the New York Knicks. They're coming off a big win, Jalen Brunson game winner in their most recent game, but the Knicks have gone off to a slow start this year in spite of having a great offense because defensively they've been average. One of the most average teams in the NBA. And Mitchell Robinson being out, Precious Achiuwa not playing really plays a big role. And Karl-Anthony Towns having to be the sole rim protector. And so far, Cat's been awesome offensively for the Knicks. He's been arguably their best offensive player. I was in attendance my first game in MSG, and he had 46. One of the most impressive games I've ever seen in person. But defensively, he's been struggling just as much. And for this New York team, they're struggling to get consistent shooting on Mikal Bridges from three. He's had some good moments. He's made his mid-range shots. They feel like a team that is going to, just like last year, pick it up in the second half of the year. The Knicks are 9-11 to start last year. And then next thing you know, they're going on, and I think they're 17-3 in the first 20 games with OG Anunoby. So I'm going to kind of stake my claim here at the New York Knicks. People asking, are they better than last year or are they worse? I think they're a bit as good, and they're going to show us in the second half of this year that their slow start's really not, to me, a sign of what's to come. I believe the Knicks this year go in the conference finals. I think they can easily do it. Between them and the Cavs, it'll be close, but I don't think they're going to take a step back at all.
Okay, the Knicks, that's a good one. Real or fake? I'm gonna go with the Brooklyn Nets, and I'll go for a different purpose. I think they're fake because I think as much as like Wilder alluded to, it's November basketball, and this is the time where the bad teams tend to catch people off guard or play really well. I think for Brooklyn, we've seen them play really hard in most of their games. I think they've given a competitive edge. We've seen Dennis Schroeder. We've seen Cam Johnson. We've seen even, at times Ben Simmons. We've seen this team look really good, and offensively they're able to stay in games. Defensively, they play really hard. I call it fake because I think this won't last. And I think eventually you'll start to see a couple of these guys get shipped out at the highest of their values, like a player like Dennis Schroeder, for example, who's playing at a really high level, able to get to the rim, be a solid playmaker. Now, he was always a pest defensively. He's playing really well right now. You could see a guy like him, being on the market and getting shipped out. $13 million, I believe, is his contract. It's not nothing crazy. So fake, I call him fake in the sense of a team where we've seen them be really competitive. We've seen them have an edge, but I think they really want to be in the Cooper flag sweepstake. I think they really want a guy, in this top 8, top 10 pick, like a guy like Igor, Conrad, Liam McNeely, Dylan Harper, one of these boys, Nolan Trayer. So any one of these guys they want to get their hands on. So you could see a moment where they start shipping these really good players out.
Absolutely.
I feel like at the trade deadline, Portland's going, or not. Why? Okay, I don't know. Portland has voodoo on me now, but Brooklyn is going to be that one team at the trade deadline people are going to look at for deadline help. Last year, who was that team last year? The team that everybody just looked at for just, okay, you're bad, just give us your players. I think people thought it was going to be Utah, but they didn't really give up as much as we expected.
I think of Chicago. People are waiting for them to move Giddey and maybe get to Sumu, which they were never going to do.
Yeah, so I think Brooklyn's going to be the team people are going to call for roster improvement because they have a lot of those role players that everybody just kind of wants, and they just don't have the star power at the top, right? I think there's going to be a lot of calls about Dorian Finney-Smith, Dennis Schroeder, and Cam Johnson at the trade deadline. And Dennis Schroeder, man, we see what he can do in Olympic basketball. We see what he can do in FIFA basketball, but 82-game NBA season, there's a lot of averages there. I think Cam Thomas is real, but I agree. I think Brooklyn's going to kind of fall off offensively and defensively, frankly. And at the deadline, they'll have a great opportunity to really stack on assets. And so the team I want to talk about today, I think it has easily been the most disappointing team in the NBA so far. It's the Philadelphia 76ers. Right. Missing Paul George a lot, missing Kevin Durant, missing Tyrese Maxey. And I'm going to say this is real. The Philadelphia 76ers are a bad basketball team.
Right?
Yeah. I think you called Embiid Kevin Durant, but you're chilling.
You definitely did.
Embiid. Okay.
There you go.
As you could tell, my mind's still flustered from Julius Randle's masterclass in the fourth. But I'll say the Philadelphia 76ers are a bad basketball team this year. We saw the Memphis Grizzlies very early in the season. They got knocked out of the race, right? Ja Morant, his suspension, he comes back, gets hurt. Jaren Jackson, Marcus Smart, like their entire roster battle injuries. Steven Adams, everybody on that team got hurt essentially. And now we're seeing with the 76ers right away. Embiid, hurt, comes back, suspended. Paul George, hurt. Everybody's starting to come back. Tyrese Maxey's hurt. There's some teams every year that it's just not their year. Players get hurt and they take themselves out of the race. And starting 2-10 historically is not favorable to make the playoffs, even in the Eastern Conference. And Paul George is only getting older. Joel Embiid, he's hurt pretty consistently, and he's not playing back-to-backs, theoretically. Will they be able to make enough ground despite Jared McCain looking awesome? We'll talk about him later.
Yep.
I don't think so. And, every team, there's a team like this every year, and I just think Philadelphia is that team.
They're such a weird squad because Tyrese Maxey coming back in 1 week versus 2 or 3 could make a world of a difference for a squad that is getting the best play of any rookie right now in Jared McCain. And we'll again talk about him in a little bit. The theory of the team makes a lot more sense now if you have Jared McCain shooting the way that he does with Maxey in the backcourt. Because to put that much shooting around Embiid, maybe you've got Gerson Yabusele, a guy like maybe really after Gershon Yabusele, no one on that team is shooting well off the bench. But you start to see a blueprint for that Philly team if Tyrese Maxey comes back sooner or later. I think, building off your point, it comes down to the pressure being on Embiid to not miss any more time. If he does, they're in contention for getting a top 10 pick. And maybe they get it, maybe they don't get that top 6 protection. So Philly is definitely a team that feels like last year's Grizzlies. But if Maxey only misses 2 weeks opposed to 4, I think the opportunity presents itself for them to still climb into that play-in race. Then from there, the Eastern Conference is as top-heavy as it's ever been. You look past the top 2, every single team's hovering around 500. So Philly is really only 4 games back, 5 games back, despite being as dreadful of a position as you possibly could find yourself in after the offseason they've had.
And they've talked about how they're willing to move them first round picks for some players. Like they understand the situation they're in. You know, they understand that this is a very short window. And if you look at the East, outside of the Cavs in Boston, you know, everybody else is kind of trying to figure out their way. Like Orlando, you're dealing with their injury stuff, but they've been playing a little bit better as of late. But yeah, like really out, like the Cavs and the Celtics have kind of been cruising through the East, kind of been smoking teams back and forth. Everybody else still trying to find an identity, trying to figure out what they want to do, get healthy and whatnot. So I look at Philly, and I think Jared McCain, you mentioned it, Wilder. We're going to talk about it a little later, but I think Jared McCain, you know, kind of ascending himself as one of those guys does help this depth that's lacking already. But we're looking at a team still with their wings being Paul George, Caleb Martin, and Kelly Oubre, you know, not the greatest. Still a lack of playmaking juice from this team, you know, not a lot of ball movement, you know, not a lot of, you know, pass to the left, pass to the right, ball movement, guys moving, cutting, anything. It's really stagnant offense, and you don't want to see that from a team, you know, whose aspirations is to make a finals. So I think, you know, for me, it's just, can they stay healthy? Of course, but when they are healthy, who's going to be the 7-8 man rotation that you kind of trust in that sense? And I think Jared, you know, walking up and being really good for them, kind of being one of those guys is huge for them. For me, though, another team that's real or fake, I'm going with the Cleveland Cavaliers. I mean, you know, me and John, we've been here, man. This has been one of our teams. You know, this team is, and I got them on the TV right now.
Me too.
This team is legit, man, and I mean that in the sense of they may not win the championship. I don't think just because you don't win the championship, you're not a legit team. You know, they may not have all the powers to stop Boston Celtics, but I look at this team and I think they are completely going to change the narrative of what the idea of this team is. You know, people thought the Twin Towers couldn't work. People thought the two-guard lineup couldn't work. People thought this team should have upgraded in the offseason. You're looking at players like Karis LeVert, who's improved. You're looking at players like Darius Garland, who gets back, who's looking back to form. Evan Mobley, who may not have improved in the numbers, but from eye test, you can see the vast improvements in his game. Looking at Jared Allen, he's improved. Donovan Mitchell is still very much Donovan Mitchell. Ty Jerome has stepped into this lineup. He's improved. I mean, this team feels deeper than it's ever been, even though it's essentially had the same players for the past 2 or 3 seasons. And you didn't even get Max Strus back, who's another player that can add to this three-point shooting variance to the defense of this team. And I think for them, just the way they play, you know, the continuity they play with, the defensive attention, 1 through 5, they play defense at a high level. Every guy is balled in on the defensive side. They're able to communicate really well. They have the rim protection. They have the guys that can guard on the perimeter. Then you look at offensively, they have 2 uber efficient playmakers, along with guys who can stretch the floor, guys who can get to the rim, guys who has the little floater in them, just guys who at all 3 levels can get a bucket while being able to hit the extra guy. I mean, this team, for me, seems real in the sense of they can make some real noise, maybe touch the Eastern Conference Finals. And with teams like Milwaukee and Philly, who don't seem like those dominant teams like before, you're looking at just Boston, who Cleveland does play in a couple days. Yeah. And they've always given them fits in those matchups in the regular season. Even last year in the playoffs, we saw them play them really, really tough outside of most teams. Unfortunately, D. Mitch did get hurt. Yeah. But outside of that, like maybe in Orlando when Boncaro gets back, but this Cavs team seems real for me. And it seems like Kenny Atkinson has really done an important job with this group.
Absolutely. Four teams. I voice cracked there. Four teams in NBA history started off a season 14-0. The Cleveland Cavaliers just joined that group. The other three teams, the 1994 Houston Rockets, won the NBA Finals. The 2003 Dallas Mavericks lost in the conference finals. And the 2016 73-9 Golden State Warriors, who lost in the finals.
No
You
Bulls
look
teams.
at
No
what's
MJ
up?
teams. No MJ teams is shocking. I'll be honest.
Yeah, I am a little bit surprised because they won 72 games, of course. You look at this Cleveland Cavaliers team. They're the best offense in basketball. Last year, their average with Darius Garland being hurt, not being his true self, Jared Allen missing a lot of time, and the three-point shooting not being there. And what held them back so much last year is a lack of floor spacing because you're playing two bigs together. So what Kenny Atkinson has done with this new group is staggering the minutes of Jared Allen and Evan Mobley with the two guards. And the biggest theme in allowing him to separate the guards' minutes is the amount of shooting that they have. You have Ty Jerome playing super well off the bench. The 6'5" combo guard that can shoot well, is a good playmaker. He's fine defensively. And then you plug in someone like Georges Niang. He hasn't been making the shots, but he's one of the most well-respected shooters in the league. You have Sam Merrill who's shooting very well. And those guys have all done a good job defending to where there's only one guy who can kind of exploit defensively. And even then, you have arguably the best defender in the world, Evan Mobley. And if you don't think he's the best, I would certainly believe he's top three. Jared Allen, same exact thing. So what Kenny Atkinson has done is find a formula where you're getting your best playmaker and your best defender on the floor at all times. Because Garland's playing his best basketball. He's been uber efficient. And when he comes out the game, you have that lineup of Donovan Mitchell and then Evan Mobley together. And specifically to give you some data, when Donovan Mitchell and Evan Mobley are on the floor, without Garland and Jared Allen, they're a plus 20 points per 100 possessions. That is in the 99th percentile. That's with their three bench players of LeVert, Georges Niang, and Sam Merrill. Then when Garland and Jared Allen are on the floor without Donovan, their best player, they're still a plus 10 per 100 possessions, 85th percentile. So Atkinson's has found a way to maximize the front court and the back court by kind of hiding those deficiencies of floor spacing and I guess you could say defensive versatility, because it is really hard in today's NBA to win with a front court of two bigs that both aren't high-level shooters and then two undersized guards who aren't super versatile defensively. So I think Kenny Atkinson's done the most you could possibly expect out of this group. And then offensively, this team's shooting as well as any. They're first in three-point percentage. They're first in two-point percentage. And really the benefits are shown because the vibes have never been higher here in Cleveland.
And I want to add to that because you guys kind of covered about everything you can with the Cleveland Cavaliers in terms of an X's and O's standpoint. I just want to throw in the fact that I'm impressed with the circumstances they dealt with last year. I mean, Darius Garland missing extended time. He had literally a jaw issue, couldn't really eat for a month.
Broke his jaw,
Yeah, he broke his jaw. He couldn't really do anything. He comes back, and how do you come back the same that way? So you're missing a star pretty much all season long. Evan Mobley's at that weird tweener stage of his career where he's not quite a super young player anymore, but you don't expect him to be ready yet. And it just feels like this year everything is lined up for Evan Mobley in that year 4, age 23 season. That's often a year we start to see people put it together, and that's what we're seeing right now. Darius Garland, confident, healthy, just fresh, all of the above for him right now. He looks like the old Darius Garland. And then you also just combine that with a coach who just has a better grasp of a roster that's complicated, but really talented and has a lot of layers and dimensions to it if you challenge it the right way, right? You have two undersized guards who can't defend and two bigs who aren't great shooters. On one hand, that's usually something that is a big problem and something you can't figure out. But because those guys are so elite at what they do, if you have enough guys blended in the right staggering rotations, as you alluded to, John, you can figure it out. And that's exactly what Cleveland's doing. And they've also found a lot of guys on the margins. Ty Jerome, I think everybody kind of gave up on him after his first stint in the NBA. He comes, now he's a key rotation player. Sam Merrill, I think he was the last pick in the draft. And you just go from top to bottom, and it's just a deeper team who's found a lot of good players on the margins. And that's what great teams do. You don't build great teams by getting top 10 picks every year. You find your core, and then the rest of your roster should be guys that you get above draft value for. That's why the Toronto Raptors won the championship a few years. Not one lottery pick on that team. So Cleveland has done a really good job of just the timing is kind of lined up properly. They got the right coach, and they're getting good talent on the margins, including Jared Allen, who they got for nothing.
Exactly. Torian Prince in the protected first.
Oh, that's actually nuts. Yeah, guys like Dean Wade, another guy. It's not like And their three-point variance, they don't even take a shit ton of threes. Like, I'm pretty sure they're probably the middle of the pack in the league in three-point attempts, but they're just getting quality open looks. Like, their shot quality, if I had to guess on threes, is probably top of the league. I mean, Dean, you mentioned it, like getting guys on the margin. Dean Wade, Karis LeVert, who people kind of, forgot about him because of his multiple injuries in Brooklyn. George Niang, like you mentioned, Craig Porter Jr. last year, he's still in the roster. I think he's a good player if they ever decide to give him minutes, if they ever find any. Even Isaac Okoro, who still trending upward in this kind of development, he's still a quality player for them. So this team is just grit. And shout out to Kenny Atkinson. He's one of the best development coaches in the league. Golden State hated that he went away, but yeah, he's done an amazing job so far in Cleveland. I'm interested to see like that point in the season when every team gets to where they kind of get a crack in their armor. How do they respond to it? How do they, come back from it? Because, they are 14-0, 13-0, whatever it is. Eventually, they're going to lose. This is it's life. It's a part of it. Eventually, you're going to lose. How many losses do you take after that? Do you go on a small skid? How do you respond from a skid? So I'm very curious and interested to see that point of the season.
Absolutely. And one more thing to finalize this discussion. It was always crazy to me how the Nets fired Kenny Atkinson after rebuilding a team that was the most hopeless in the entire association, developing the likes of Spencer Dinwiddie, second-round pick, Joe Harris, miscast second-round pick, a guy like D'Angelo Russell, rehabilitating him after a disappointing stint with the Lakers, but then also Karis LeVert as well, who, like you highlighted, dealt with a lot of injuries. Karis has some of his best basketball. He's been uber efficient, and he's one of those jack-of-all-trades wins who's like a B- skill. His skill set is basically B- at every single value, whether it's passing, shooting, defense. He brings a bit of everything, and that's what allows them to run lineups where Donovan and Darius are not on the floor together because you have a little bit of everything there. And then at the same exact time, I think really what it comes down to for Cleveland is just finding that kind of break. Last couple of years, they've dealt with injuries nonstop. And it seems like, with exception to Max Strus, they've just kind of found that bill of health that they needed. And now you're looking at this team as potentially the first seed in the Eastern Conference, which that's obviously they are right now.
To close it out. To add to that point, Cleveland is usually hurt. Jared Allen deals with injuries. Evan Mobley deals with injuries. Darius Garland deals with injuries. Something's going to come. 95% chance something is going to come with one of those guys. How do they respond to that? And how do they respond being the hunted? So those are two things. It's really cute and fun in November basketball when, oh my gosh, look at the teams the Trailblazers and the Pistons are beating, and oh my gosh, the Cavs are 14-0. But now when you're 14-0, you're in a pretty rare category, and now teams are going to target you the way that they weren't targeting you to start the season. They were just a good team to start the year, but now they are considered a contender. So how do they deal with that?
Absolutely.
Who's your next team, John, in terms of real or fake?
My next team for real or fake. Okay. Let me give you, I don't have one written down, but I'm going to give you a team that's currently 9-4 in the year. That's the Los Angeles Lakers. I'm going to go with them being very real. And this Western Conference, you have about 4 or 5 teams coming the season, which we all knew would be contenders. And 2 of them have gone off the slow starts in Minnesota and Dallas. Some of the other ones, like Oklahoma City and Denver, kind of been what we expected. To me, the Los Angeles Lakers right now are basically showing the NBA that they're still a team that can win a playoff series. First and foremost, the coaching has gotten a lot out of their group. Austin Reeves playing some of his best basketball. Anthony Davis playing at that level of a top 10 player. And then LeBron, who turns 40 years old next month, is still playing at the caliber of a clear All-NBA player. They recently moved D'Angelo Russell to the bench. Right now, I believe the Lakers are a team that is clearly real because J.J. Redick has done a good job maximizing his talent, involving Anthony Davis as much as you can. And then much like we were talking about the Cavaliers, there seems to be a new energy in Los Angeles where you're getting the absolute most out of the offense. And defensively, when Anthony Davis is on the floor, they're going to be just fine. So the Lakers are a team that I think will sustain this pace, and they will be a top 5 seed. Don't know about top 3 or top 4, but I think in a 4-5 matchup, a lot of people like the Lakers for good reason. They really just need Anthony Davis to play 60-some-odd games this year, and I think they'll be right in the thick of it.
I have two.
Can we talk about that real quick?
Do your thing.
Man, I never thought that I would feel really confident about a controversial take starting in November basketball, but I've fought this, but I'm just pretty much there. LeBron's the GOAT. He's the GOAT. Age 22 or age 40 in his age, or oh my gosh, why can't I talk today? He is 40 years old in his 22nd season, and he is getting triple doubles every single night. He had 3 triple doubles in a row recently. He's holding people to like 34% when he's the nearest defender. He is giving you an efficient 24 points per game. He is showing a level of longevity that we've honestly haven't seen outside of Kareem, and Kareem wasn't this good at this point of his career. What we're seeing with LeBron is the best we've ever seen at this stage, and you also consider the peak, how complete he is. The biggest edge a guy like Michael Jordan has over LeBron is scoring. Well, now he's the number 1 leading scorer in NBA history. He should have a Defensive Player of the Year, one of the greatest passers of all time, and he consistently finds a way to get championships in multiple eras with multiple dynasties. Jordan was the GOAT to me for a long time, but I am willing to give the crown to King James. He's the GOAT.
I agree.
That's growth. I agree too. That's amazing growth. The Lakers are interesting. I think their last couple games have been a bit of a struggle. Granted, not against an insane competition. I mean, they went to war with Memphis, and Memphis is going to be one of my teams that I do want to ask you guys. But they went to war with Memphis with no Ja Morant, and if Taylor Jenkins focused more on winning games and developing players, Memphis probably wins that game. And then they was in a dogfight with, I forgot who they played. Pelicans, yes, Pelicans, and Brandon Ingram and them boys. So they're an interesting team. I think for me, real or fake, I want to ask you guys, kind of talk about it, then ask you guys, because I think Golden State and the Memphis Grizzlies, they played last night. And, Golden State got the W. And Golden State's schedule, they've kind of played some semi-injured teams. Chet got injured in that OKC game, unfortunately, going up one-on-one with Andrew Wiggins. He ended up falling on his hip. That was unfortunate. I think Memphis right now just trying to hold the fort down while Ja Morant is out. Desmond Bane just recently came back. Jaren Jackson has been on a fucking heater as of late, really just imposing his will on small matchups, exposing mismatches, being able to get to the rim, be effective with both hands. So for Memphis, the first team, I think for me, I think I'm feeling on the realer side, because I think if you look at this roster and you look at this team, they are maximizing what they can do, and that's transition basketball. They are getting out, they are running, they're putting the ball in their guards' hands, they're letting their bigs kind of be creative with the ball, they are pushing the pace, they're extending that to the three-point line. And I think I don't know the numbers off the back of my head, but based off of just how I've watched them from last year prior, they feel like a better three-point shooting team with a lot more weapons than they've had prior. I mean, we're talking about Santi Aldama, Jay Huff when he can get in the lineup, Desmond Bane, Jalen Wells, who we're going to talk about a little bit later. They just feel like Vince Williams, when he's back now. So, and I feel like he's an effective three-point shooter. So they have a little bit more in the three-point department. And then they have just multiple guys that can defend the rim, and Aldama, Jaren Jackson, and Jay Huff when he gets his minutes, Zach Edey. Right. Then they have guys that can defend on the perimeter with Jalen Wells, with Vince Williams, when G.G. Jackson gets back. So, and multiple playmakers, and Ja, Bane, Scotty. I mean, this team, it may be lacking in that creativity in the half-court offense. I do think Ja is one of the most creative players in the league, but I think what hinders him is the fact that you can step back. He doesn't have the three-point shot all the way. You get some size down low. It does cause some trouble, but that's when the lineup things come into play. But I think this team, for me, they're so deep. It's just the only thing holding them back from me right now is from being a top seed is health. I think if they were healthy and they had their right 9 to 10 rotation players, they'll be a legit top 4, top 5 seed in the West. But what do you guys think Memphis, do you play the real tag or do you play the fake tag? And if you do, why?
I would put the lukewarm tag on the Grizzlies, because right now they have 2 of the 3 best rookies in the NBA. You highlighted Jalen Wells has gone off to a really good start. Zach Edey's been productive in his minutes and efficient. But what kind of makes me hesitant to really group the Grizzlies in with a team like the Lakers is in the postseason, I still have questions beyond Ja Morant. Partly like you alluded to with their half-court offense. Transition offense, something that in the regular season can be really effective to gain to that 50-win mark. But beyond that, when you get into the thick of a game, I worry about Jaren Jackson sustaining his level of three-point shooting. Right now, he's at 36% on 5 attempts, and that's been a real positive sign. But the last 5 years have shown us he's more of a 33 to 34% three-point shooter. So my biggest question with them would partly be the health. I like a Marcus Smart, who's, with how deep this team is, halfway out the rotation. He's gained his minutes, but he's offensively has not been a positive contributor whatsoever. And I just asked the question, beyond that big three, how much can you rely on these younger guys like a Jalen Wells that have not been in a playoff environment just yet? I would say the Grizzlies are a comfortable playoff team, but I really can't see them win a playoff series, at least right now, until you really see that consistent growth on the offensive side of the ball.
I would agree with that. And I would say we saw the Grizzlies a couple years ago when they were a consistent top 2 seed. And you just saw the veterans on that team, whether you go from the DeAnthony Melton to Kyle Andersons to Steven Adams, from top to bottom. All those guys are gone now. And they've replaced them with all these young players, talented young players nonetheless, but very young players who would probably not get the reps they are getting in Memphis on other relatively competitive teams, because this team is consistently injured and this team doesn't have a lot of veterans. So going into the postseason, it's going to be very interesting to see, one, can they ever be healthy? We just talked about the 76ers in that question. Is this going to be a thing with Memphis? And then on top of that, if they're healthy, like John said, will we get enough half-court creation on this team and just enough IQ? Because it's just a very young team right now. So I would agree. I'm kind of lukewarm. If they're healthy, I do think they're in the playoff conversation, but they need to be healthy, and we need to see what this team looks like when healthy and how these guys all kind of interconnect, because this team is all, for the last couple of years, has functioned pretty incompletely, and a lot of guys have built their momentum not with the healthy rosters. So I kind of question the pecking order when everything comes together, if it does.
I agree with that, specifically when G.G. Jackson comes back into the lineup. That's a very talented young player going to year 2 who is very raw, but he has so much talent that you have to feature him more and more. So the Grizzlies, to me, feel like the Miami Heat when they go to the NBA Finals in the following year. You're trying to decide if you're trying to go all in the win now mode or developing your talent to try to elongate that runway to contention. So with Vince Williams, G.G. Jackson, Jalen Wells, Scottie Pippen Jr., who's, I think, capable of being a starting point guard in the NBA if he wasn't behind Ja Morant, and then Zach Edey, there's an abundance of young talent that it becomes that tough question of, all right, do you make a win now move, maybe sacrificing a little bit of that depth, or do you really decide we're going to lean developing this young core? Because Ja Morant, for as great of a player as he is, you should try to win now and maximize that timeline that he gives you. So I think it's a tough question for Zach Kleiman and the entire front office, because there may not really be a right answer with how stacked and great the top end of the Western Conference is. Just because Ja Morant's amazing. Is he Nikola Jokic? Is he Shai Gilgeous-Alexander? He's not. And that's what makes that kind of a question there may not even be a right answer to.
You actually kind of hit it. Like you mentioned those guys, and you didn't mention Marcus Smart. Marcus Smart might be the guy that's kind of going to get left out the rotation if he continues. Like he might be the guy that's on the trade market if they're looking for an upgrade. You know, he's at $20 million. That's something you can move to get somebody that's probably much more of a fit. You know, maybe like a Cam Johnson. You know, maybe somebody that's just hovering around, just throwing up names with the same contract.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, you look at that lineup. I mean, you got Ja, you got Bane. You got, let's say they do decide to start Vince Williams, Jaren, Edey, and then you got Scotty, Aldama, GG, Jalen Wells off the bench. I mean, that sounds like a Jay Huff. That sounds like a nasty 10-man rotation. You know, you're just leaving out, like you mentioned, the youth part of it. But next team, Golden State Warriors. This is a team that is, I think, in all of our eyes, exceeding a little bit of expectations, being as if Steph has missed some time. They were still managed to grind out some of those wins. You know, they've been one of the best defenses, if not the best defense in basketball. Offensively, you know, Steph had 13 points and their offense was fuming last game. So this offense has been really steady. It's been able to be fast, quick, get out transition, get a lot of three-point shots up. It's been, you know, one of the best offenses in our lifetime. Real or fake? Because I think this defense, and I talked about it, we talked about this prior to them going on that stretch where they had OKC, they had Cleveland, they had Boston, right? They beat OKC. Cleveland destroyed them. Then they went out there and they beat Boston in Boston. You know, I think this team, for me, I think the defense is legit. I think if Draymond Green is locked in, he's engaged, this defense is no lower than like the 7th best defense in the world. I mean, when you have a locked in Draymond, he's like Rudy Gobert in the sense of he can just uplift the defense, turn it into an elite unit. So I think Draymond, I give him that grace. Offensively, Will that second creator start to weigh down? When will Steph break down late in the season? Will he start to be too much on his body? Will they start to lack that creativity? Will they get figured out? Where are we at on the real or the fake with Golden State?
I'll start off. I believe the Warriors right now are showing us two things. First and foremost, this is the most underappreciated duo in NBA history. Steph Curry, and there's a tweet by Carson Bremer I want to highlight because I think this encapsulates it so perfectly. The Warriors have a top 5 offensive player ever and a top 5 defensive player ever, and they've had that for more than a decade now. They've had more top 5 defenses than top 5 offenses, to credit Draymond Green, because right now, this defense is one of the best in the NBA. And impressively, they're 4th in offensive rating after losing a guy like Klay Thompson, who was a mainstay in Golden State. The second thing, though, that really does make me, I kind of would say lukewarm, but lower on the Warriors. I don't really group them into that top half of the Western Conference, is that I don't see that second creator to elevate Steph Curry. And at his age, we see moments like the Mavericks game where he can give you that glimpse of what he was. But we're seeing a slight decline by Steph, partly due by age, and not having Jordan Poole in the way that you guys did in the 2022 playoffs. I have a hard time seeing the Warriors sustain the start of the year, this 10-2 start. I believe they'll be a playoff team. And if Steph and Draymond play 67, 70 games, they can definitely win 50. But it's going to be really hard for me to see this team building off that. Steph misses 5 to 10 games because I look around the rest of the lineup and I don't see someone else to be that second creator. Buddy Hield's been great. I think he'll be probably one of the more consistent guys. He's been one of the most impressive players, I'd say, in this new system. But I think it really comes down to Brandon Podziemski and Jonathan Kuminga to take those steps forward. But I don't know how, specifically in Kuminga's case, how that would work in the starting lineup because he plays the best ball off the bench. And then with AirPods, the question is, he's had a little bit of a slower start to his sophomore year. Can he replicate what Jordan Poole was? And I think it's a little bit too soon.
I think the Warriors are fake. I think they're fake. I think they don't stink. I think they're a fine basketball team. Don't get me wrong when I say that. They're deep. They're well coached. All those things are true. But you guys mentioned the second creator problem. That's a bigger issue when is Stephen Curry still a legitimate top 10 player in the NBA anymore? We just look at the post All-Star break last year.
Wait, what?
Is Stephen Curry a top 10 player in the league anymore?
Yes.
Post All-Star break last year, he's
no.
giving you an inefficient 23 points per game. In the Olympics, until the final 2 games, he was not good. And starting the year, he's giving you below 23 points per game. Are we sure he's still a top 10 player in the NBA right now?
100%.
I'm confident in that.
I don't agree with that, man. There's a lot of good players in the NBA right now, and Stephen Curry hasn't produced like a top 10 player this year. He's been really good. It's a very deep team. They play an 11-man rotation. All the role players, high IQ role players, highly connected. But when the middle of the season comes along and Buddy Hield starts going on a crazy cold streak, because he will, because we've seen Buddy Hield do this before, when they need a second creator, all the pressure's on Stephen Curry. And it's like, okay, dude, consistently give us MVP Stephen Curry. Are we sure he can do that? I don't know anymore because he was not good in the second half of last year. He is in his mid-30s. You never know when an injury is going to come. And until the final 2 games in the Olympics, granted, that shot in the last game of the Olympics was one of the greatest things I've ever seen. He hasn't looked like a top 10 player to start this year either. If you don't have a second creator and Stephen Curry is more of a top 15 to 17 player now, I think that shines brighter, that problem.
17? He's a top 17 player?
I said 15 to 17. Is he better than Donovan Mitchell?
This is what kills me about this conversation. This is what kills me about this conversation. This is where the context is lacking. Because every guy in the top 12, top 10, top 15 has another guy that takes the pressure, takes the leverage off. Because Steph doesn't have that, he looks a lot worse. Mind you, he's probably one of the smallest guys and probably the oldest guy in the top 10, top 15 outside LeBron. He gets the tax. If you put any of those small guards in this situation, they probably don't look the same just like him. They probably are going to fizzle out late in the year. But to say he's not a top 10 player because he hasn't played like that this year, first of all, the first 2 games, they didn't need him to do it. When they did need him to do it against Boston, against Dallas, he has done it. Last game, they beat him by a lot. He didn't need to do that. So there's not 10 players you would take over him to be a number 1 on the championship team. There just isn't.
Age 36 season though, guys. Stephen Curry is my favorite player of all time.
I can't.
He's always been my favorite player of all time. This is coming not from a place of, I'm trying to find a reason to crap on Steph Curry. Stephen Curry has been good this year. He's only playing 29 minutes per game. That's great. 11-man rotation. Theoretically, late in the season, glass half full, maybe he'll have more energy middle of the season. I think those are real conversations. But then there's also a conversation. Is he good enough to overcome not having a real second option anymore? I think those two questions can both be true.
I don't
you
think
don't have to.
Is Kevin Durant good enough to do that?
Is Kevin Durant what?
Good enough to do that?
No.
Do what?
He had a second option.
Overcome without a second creator.
No.
I think Kevin Durant can in a way.
For a season? Yeah.
I'm talking within the context of this Warriors team. I'm saying what they're doing right now is absolutely fantastic. They've been great. But when things aren't going their way with the role players, can Steph overcome that? KD, I'm not sure. Maybe. I don't think Steph Curry, if we're going to have the Steph Curry KD conversation 7 years ago, I'm fully on the side of that was Steph Curry's team. I'm not, you know what I mean? That's not the conversation I'm having right now. I'm just wondering, can Stephen Curry still carry that load late into the season? I don't really know because I was watching a lot of Warriors in the second half of last year, and he didn't look like the same player. That's just the truth.
That is valid, but I think you could be a top 10 player without being able to carry not having a second load. And you look at the top 10 players in the NBA.
To a championship? To like a contending status in the Western Conference?
I look at Anthony Davis as a top 10 player, right? I think
Davis is better than Curry right now.
I don't think he can carry a team to the Western Conference Finals without a second option. Now, here's the thing. No, wait, hold on, Riff.
He's a better player. He's not.
Anthony Davis is having his best season offensively of his career right now. 31 points a game.
Yes, but he's also. Go ahead. Yeah, John.
He has LeBron James next to him, which is an important thing to note. When I look at the top 10 players in the NBA, I'm going to give them to you right now. After the top 5, I don't look at one player and say he's confidently better than Steph. If you want to say he's not top 5, that's fair. I think he's on the cusp of it.
Sure, that's what I'm saying.
He's definitely top 10. I'll give you the names. First up, you don't even have to. I'm not going to stop for these. You know the names: Nikola Jokic, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Luka Doncic, Joel Embiid, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander.
Fair. That's the 5.
After those 5, not one of these names I'm confident saying insane or better than Steph. Jason Tatum.
Yes.
Anthony Davis.
Yes.
Anthony Edwards.
No. No.
Yes.
This is insane. Oh my God, this is insane.
Keep going.
LeBron James.
That's fine.
Yes.
Kevin Durant.
That's fine.
Yes. KD looked good to start the year. That's 50-50.
Who?
Devin Booker.
Oh my God, what are we doing?
It's 50-50.
What are we doing?
65-35.
I don't know, man. Booker was a better player last year, I thought. I don't know.
Devin Booker hasn't looked great to start the year either.
He hasn't, but he just
he's
dropped
also
50
under
today.
23 points a game, and he's not getting the gravity or the efficiency of Steph. Steph's shooting 43% from 3. And he's also leading the top 5 offense at the same exact time with Andrew Wiggins and Buddy Hield being his next 2 supporting co-stars. In Phoenix, you have Kevin Durant. I know Bradley Beal is out as well right now, but they're in the middle of the pack offensively. And that's with a variety of fine complementary role players. Royce O'Neal, Grayson Allen's not shooting as well, fine. But guys like Tyus Jones playing decent. Suns are an average offense at Devin Booker. Warriors offense is top 5. Partly due to the depth, but primarily because it's
plus all the role players are shooting way above their average right now too.
In Golden State,
that's a part of Golden State's. That's Wilder. A part of Golden.
They're a deep team.
How do they get open? Wilder? How do they get open?
No, it's a great system, and Steph has great gravity. I'm not denying that. But what I'm saying is it's still inevitable that this lack of shot-creating depth is going to bite them at some point in the season. Right now, they can play an 11-man rotation. It looks great. It looks beautiful. That's rarely a thing you can do for 82 games. It just rarely is.
I agree. I don't think.
We're reliant on guys like Buddy Hield looking like a freaking star right now. And I get it. It's a system built for him. But he's not Klay Thompson. He's still not Klay Thompson.
He can be what Klay Thompson was the last 2 years.
Yeah, but great.
I don't think
we're not get Golden State.
I don't think any of those guys you would take over Steph can turn this team into a championship team either. So that's where
that's why I'm saying, are the Warriors real or fake? They're fake.
No. But that's not where the disconnect is. No.
But if there's like a Shai Gilgeous-Alexander leading this team, for example, right? I would have a better feeling about that. You know what I'm saying?
The first five, I don't disagree with. SGA, Embiid, Giannis, Luka, the Joker. They got it. Like those are the 5 best players in the world.
Mm-hmm.
But we talking about the next 5 up. I'm not confidently sitting here saying, especially Anthony Davis. Anthony Davis hasn't been a number 1 in God knows how long. That's just not him. Yeah, that's
I'm not saying I would take Anthony Davis as a player over peak Steph Curry. I am not saying that. I totally agree with you. But the level of dominance AD is playing this year, I mean, it's pretty ridiculous. And a guy like LeBron James, who's playing some of the best defense he's played in the regular season in quite a few years, while still giving you legit triple doubles. I mean, those are Steph Curry is still fantastic. What I'm wondering is, can Stephen Curry, when the volume is required to get high, so far this season with the way the Warriors have played, it's gotten easy for him. And that's not a problem. It's not his fault. That's great. And he's a big product of that because they run the system for him. But when things aren't going right and you need your guy, and I get when you need him for 15 games to just be a top 10 player and give you 30 points per game, right? Can they do it for a long stretch of time? We're 12 games into the season, guys. That's all I'm wondering, because second half of last year, he fell off. He just did.
Brother, he did that in 2022, and they won the chip.
And they won the chip that year.
He's 3 years older now.
But I'm saying that's just him. That's just him.
3 years older now.
James, 2 years older. We've seen him in the second half versus the Celtics post 20 points in a win. We've seen him do it again 2 games later versus the Mavericks or against the Thunder. And then the next game against the Mavericks, score 12 straight points at the end of the fourth quarter, drop nearly 40 points as Luka Doncic is on the other side of the floor. Steph takes over that game entirely. We've seen him against 3 of the 4 best teams in the NBA completely take over games.
No, I totally get that. But what I'm saying is,
hold up, let me finish this thought. Steph has declined slightly, and it's partly due to age, but he is still clearly the same type of caliber. And to me, he is still firmly in the top 10.
Okay, when Buddy Hield's shooting 1 for 16 from the field in a game, which he's done before, and it's March basketball, and you have to shrink that rotation to 8, I'm just wondering, what is it going to look like at that point? Stephen Curry in the first part of this year has been very good, and the Warriors are fresh legs, and they're deep, and that's fantastic. And I get it. He did have that playoff run after falling off in the second half of 2022, but he was 33, 34. He's 36 now, guys. And, I mean, he did have the opportunity to show for himself in the playoffs last year, but we're still an extra year removed from that. I'm turning into Max Kellerman with Tom Brady's cliff theory right now, but I'm skeptical of it. I'm skeptical of that. And that's why I think the Warriors are quote unquote fake, because I don't think, while Stephen Curry is great, he's still a legit all NBA player. If they don't have enough secondary creation and the role players, when they get in a little slump, because role players do that, how will they look? We haven't seen that really yet. So that's all I'm going to say. That's more of a question for January, February, March.
But I'm confused though, because do you have questions about the team or him being a top 10 player?
I have questions about both.
See, and this is where the disconnect, because if you're talking about the team, I agree with you. I think when you get those Buddy Hield droughts and when you start to see fizzle in that offense, for sure, 100%. But I don't think that's an indictment on who Steph is as a player. And I think
I don't disagree. But what I'm saying is, when that moment comes, can he respond to the same way as he once did as a legitimate superstar player? I'm not sure.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair. I mean, Jason Tatum was...
Because they don't have a secondary guy like a Jaylen Brown who can take the pressure off of him like a Jason Tatum can. He has to be... There's going to be a point in the year, I think he's going to have to be Superman. And will we see the same Superman when the legs get a little tired in February, March, April? Because we have two examples of the drop in the second half of the year.
Wilder, you just made my point easier.
I think we agree and disagree in the same time.
You just said they don't have a Jaylen Brown to come save them when their star players shooting up tour dates, right? That's what you just said.
But only mega stars, top 3 players in the world, can really consistently.
I agree with you. But you just said in the same breath you would take Tatum over Steph because you don't think Steph can do it with this roster. But
no, I think Tatum at this point is a little more dynamic over the course of the season. I do, but that's not very important in the conversation.
Dynamic? I don't even know what that means. I don't know.
I think Jason Tatum. I think Jason Tatum, with his highs, with his defense, with his ability to create space off physicality, which is something he's gotten better at this year. I think what we're seeing from Jason Tatum is peak Jason Tatum. And I think it's sustainable over the year. It's not like he's shooting outlier stats and everybody around the team is just playing way above their level.
I mean, he just shot tour dates in the playoffs. I feel like that matters more than Steph's second half.
He got a ring though, like Steph did in
Oh,
22. I mean,
okay.
like,
So, well, Steph was the best player.
that's
for
fair.
the-
That's fair. That's fair.
I don't know.
I'm
I
not
think-
saying I would take Tatum over peak Steph. By the way, it's not an indictment on
No,
Steph.
you just said you'd take Devin Booker over Steph. I don't know how I feel about that. one.
I would take that one
disagree.
back. I would take Steph over Booker, but
Like I think Steph is clearly very much still the like third best guard in the league, like just guard. But we'll see.
Luka, Shea.
That's it.
Yeah, point guard. Yeah, he's clear third best point guard.
No, I said guards. I said
Guard.
guards. You can
I'm
count.
telling you guys, I think we're going to see a pretty awesome version of Ant this year. I'm telling you. I mean, you guys were joking with me in the text and saying, hey, look at Devin Booker brutally outplaying Ant. In the second half, what does he do? 20 points, 7 for 9 shooting, locking Booker down in clutch moments,
who hit the
and they
game
win the
winner?
game.
Who hit the game winner?
Randall, you know who brought them in that position to get that game winner, though, in the second half?
I just wish Devin Booker had some help. That's all I'm saying.
I'll take Steph over Booker still. I was thinking out loud in those moments, but like I was clearly thinking out loud in those moments, but I'll give you Steph over Booker, but you know, kind of like Fox last Friday, everybody's trashing Ant about look at Fox getting 60 and Ant's like, hey, watch this when it matters. And Ant's been crazy in the fourth quarter this year, and that's kind of saved us while we have like a million warts to start. So we're chilling.
Yeah, I think like we're talking about like just in a vacuum, who would you take as your best guy to win a championship? That is not 10 guys, but if you're just talking like regular season, a lot of the young guys should, in theory, probably play better than most of these old dudes. So I don't hate that. Like AD is probably the best player on the Lakers right now. In a playoff series, I fully expect LeBron to be the guy.
Yeah, I agree.
So I like it. You know, it's very like for the old guys, it's very dependent. Like playoff time matters a lot more for them. Like I honest to God, I want Steph to play 29 minutes when we make the playoffs. I don't even want him to do all that.
That's a dream scenario.
Yeah, like I don't even want him to do all that extra stuff and just 30-point games. I don't need that. I need you well rested for the playoffs because that's what we need you the most.
Absolutely. And that's why Steve Kerr has that theme of like sitting him out in certain stretches and longer than almost any other star player, because with how much he runs, you have to preserve him as best as you can. So
yep, absolutely. Maybe let's like move off of the Golden State Warriors now, because I think we all agree and disagree for different same reasons.
Yep.
Okay, so is it my turn to say a real or fake team?
I think we covered all those bases.
I don't think I gave a second one.
Okay.
Let me name 8.
Named a good amount.
We can name 8. Okay, I'll name number 6. We're just gonna mention Timberwolves because we just talked about them.
Yeah.
I think they'll be fine. I think the Timberwolves will be okay. It's like that dog meme sitting in the fire and it's like everything is fine. That's how I feel right now. But I think Minnesota, the reason why I still think they're still going to be good, there's a lot of when you make a major trade before the season starts, a lot of works can happen. Minnesota clearly hasn't had a lot of reps playing with each other. Julius Randle didn't play in the preseason really, besides one half against the Bulls. They come together. Nobody knows what their role is. Nobody's taking care of the basketball. We're having Dante DiVincenzo become the worst shooter in the league. Mike Conley looks 37, every bit of it. And it was weird because Mike Conley was moving fine, but he's just not making anything. And then Jaden is doing weird stuff. Everything just felt very chaotic and disconnected, but they were still able to find ways to win early. And then they had the Portland games, but then they bounced back in clutch time against 2 straight playoff teams. And I think the reason they're still real, they're going to make the playoffs because regardless, Ant and Randall are the half-court creators who can overcome some of those tough losses, close games, things of that nature. But I also do believe there's going to be a lot of average factor with like a Dante DiVincenzo and Mike Conley just shooting the basketball. I mean, both of those two guys are shooting below 31% coming into today and both shot better. I think when the shooting comes better and a little more time comes by, the turnovers are already starting to go down a little bit. I think the offense is going to be a top 10 offense. And despite the defense struggling in relative standards, they've been a top 10 defense pretty much all year. So if they can just eliminate I can't talk today, guys. Limit the mistakes offensively, not allow your defense to have like an extra 5 points a game just from transition baskets. I think you're going to see a leveling where it's more like the number 9 offense and number 6 defense, number 5 defense, and that usually adds up to a top 4 seed in the conference, and I still would bet on that for Minnesota.
So wait, hold on, because you you tried to slick away from that.
What did I slick away from?
Let's get to the real important questions. You guys made the conference finals last year. You guys made the Western Conference Finals. You upset Denver in the second round. You beat them on their home court, Game 7. You make a trade for Julius Randle. Honestly, Randle and Cat to me are like the same tier of players. So I don't like. I think obviously in terms of just like, offensive system and the way teams run, obviously one can look different or better than the other. But I think all in all, just total player, they're both in the same tier to me. I think defensively, Randall has his lapses, specifically off ball. Sometimes and then when Rudy's off the floor, sometimes you guys do really look bad. But for the most part, your starting five is fine. You guys are starting to figure it out. Real or fake in the sense of, can you make the Western Conference Finals again, buddy? Like this isn't.
They can still make the Western Conference Finals.
Yeah,
they can still make the Western Conference Finals.
Like John, we talked about it before. The Lakers are there. You got Denver still hovering.
Really playing a lot better.
I think Dallas would figure it out eventually, and I think even then that's still a matchup problem for you guys. You got OKC when they get healthy, so you got some teams. You got some teams. I think teams like Memphis, Golden State would make it a tough 6-7 games with you guys. I think you guys will win, but those would be tough series regardless. Houston is another fiery team that can just aggravate the hell out of you guys. Maybe not win it, but definitely aggravate you. The Western Conference right now seems a bit deep in the sense of just a lot of good teams, and the top end teams are kind of maybe trying to figure it out or still up in the air. But it definitely seems like there's a lot of good teams in the West. With Julius Randle's playoff, I don't want to say resume because it's not really a resume.
It's bad. Yeah,
it's not even it's kind of like Cat before this year, like last year.
Right.
It's not really a resume. It's just like sprinkles of something, like a what's
a body of work that's
not even a body of work. It's like a practice.
He hasn't
test.
done anything.
It's a practice test. You've got a practice test of Julius Randle. He's played like 3 series in his life. It's not ideal. Ant is a playoff riser in the playoffs, so that's something you're good about. Rudy looked really good last year defensively, just in terms of switching 1 through 5, being a defensive anchor like he always is. Dante's a guy who in the playoffs, his practice test, not the most ideal. He has some of his big moments, but he's very up and down.
He averaged, what was it, 18 on 43% from 3 in the playoffs last year. He had game winners post-series.
It was against awesome. He's like inconsistent. Like I know his total series numbers look good, but he has a stinkers. He takes a lot of tough ass shots. So I don't know the
player.
Yeah, Jaden McDaniels. I don't know what he is. I don't know. Like he's offensively, he's weird. Defensively, he's there. This team is interesting in my eyes. This team is interesting because I think, like you mentioned, I agree with the point of Ant-Man and Randall should be enough to overcome some of the troubles you guys had in the clutch this year. I know last year you guys struggled mightily in the clutch, especially.
It was so bad.
Yeah, it was really bad. I think that's a problem because Cat isn't the same offensive creator as Julius Randle. I think Julius Randle's a lot better in that facet. And last year, Ant wasn't the passer that he's made modest improvements in that department. Last year, he wasn't that. So I think those two will be able to overcome that. Playoff time. How confident are you, though? It is November basketball. This team is very interesting to say the least for me. I think I'm in a lukewarm state like John was. I think I'm very much in the middle. I want to see a little bit more from this team. I think when they have lapses, you can see them losing back-to-backs to Portland. But when they lock in, you can see them going out and beating the Phoenix team where they were down. I think you guys were down most of the game, and then you came out late in the fourth. You ended up doing anything. So there's high ends, and even against the Kings, that game against the Kings, you guys were locked.
We blew that, and then
you turned it around, got back to it, won the game. So there's multiple versions of this Timberwolves team that we've seen so far. So I'm excited just to see what the end result is at the end of the year.
Yeah, it's hard for me to have a clear takeaway in Minnesota because they changed up so much this offseason. Moving Cat and replacing him with Julius Randle, who has his own unique style, and he doesn't have the same complementary value as Cat as a floor spacer, to where the first 13 games aren't going to tell you a whole lot because this team's still molding, it's marinating, and you have, like you highlighted, Mike Conley struggling. He's 37 years old. And then you have this combination of young guys like Naz Reid, Nikhil Alexander-Walker, and then Dante DiVincenzo being given more opportunity. And it feels like on Dante's part, he just had a slump to start this year, 30% from three. The volume's there to change the scenery. It took him some time in New York to really get that feel and that rhythm and confidence to get to that point where he was the second option at times in that playoff series for the Knicks last year in that run. Minnesota to me is still clearly top 3 team, top 4 team in the West, but the question just becomes in the playoffs, how does Julius Randle build it off of a night like tonight? Can he fit in? Because I think Minnesota is a similar situation to the Knicks where he's going to have the same exact expectation, and that's to maintain that play in the regular season. I have no clue if we're going to get it because the floor spacing can be a question with Jaden McDaniels and Rudy Gobert in the paint because of the way that Randle operates. It's post dominant, getting a lot of 3-point shots for his teammates. And I think operating in that space, because they're paying Rudy Gobert more money and he's way better than Mitchell Robinson, there's more of an onus for those two to play together. So it's going to be a little bit tricky to see how Chris Finch is able to maximize that front court duo.
Yeah, I would agree. I would say Minnesota's problems so far this year get highlighted by the change they try to make in the cat trade. They wanted their offense to be more dynamic off the dribble. They wanted to play faster. They wanted to play deeper. Well, they can't take care of the basketball right now. And so far, Julius Randle hasn't figured out how to be a defensive, just big body. I think what gave Cat defensive value last year is it was so simple for him. You kind of tag him off on the worst guy, or if there's a physical interior creator, you throw Cat on him. You let Gobert roam. You allow his length on top of everybody else. Just make the floor feel bigger. That was what made the defense so scary. It was the illusion of length in a lot of ways. And that illusion of length is not there anymore. It just isn't. The team feels smaller when you move from Cat to Randle, and you also add the fact that Mike Conley's still on the floor. So the defense just hasn't been the same, and they definitely don't have like a true 5 next to Rudy. People think Naz Reid is that. Naz Reid's closer to a small forward than he is a center. They don't have a true 5, and in the non-Rudy minutes, you could tell Randle and Naz don't really know what to do, where to throw their body at. Randle gets his lapses off ball, and they're highlighted because nobody's as in sync as they used to be. So there's a lot of questions on how much they can tighten up that defense, how much Naz and Randle can figure out their defensive roles in the front court. And then also, just assuming there is a slight drop-off there, how much can a more dynamic creating offense with Randle and Dante be in sync versus, the drop-off you get on defense? Can the offense move up 8 spots if your defense moves down 4 spots? And does that make up the gap? And when the playoffs come and you need more late game creation, is that an advantage that overweighs what they had defensively, especially because late in games in the playoffs, their slow feet kind of showed despite the length, and they didn't have the creators to make up for it. So there feels like a lot of the talent level of this team last year versus this year. I would say this year is slightly better, but I do think there's a lot of you're making bets that this is going to improve enough for the obvious drop-offs that they're giving up. I mean, they're dropping off on their identity in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
They're not going to be this once in every 10-year type defense. They'll be a good defense. They are a good defense, but they're not going to – can they still be a top 5 defense, and can that still be enough for the offense to take a load? And also another problem, Jaden McDaniels I don't think is ready either. And will he ever be ready? I don't know anymore because there's a clear – It's like that one dude who in college you can party all you want, but then when you're 30 and you have wife and kids and you're still doing that every night, it's kind of a problem. Jaden McDaniels has like these like lapses where he's fouling everybody and he takes himself out of the game offensively, just self-sabotages his momentum. And then it just takes him out of the game regardless of how much skill he's added. And he has these problems year 5, and it's like, dude, you're making $27 million now. You have a wife and kids. You can't do this anymore. So I think Jaden McDaniels at this point for me is the biggest question.
That's valid because he's supposed to be the one, or he was claimed to be the one who would take that incremental growth year by year. And at a certain point, I remember on Pick a Side, we're comparing him to the Robins of Jaylen Browns, these top 25 players in the world, because Jaden McDaniels has length, and he's a good athlete, and he's nowhere close to that point because it's pretty hard to see someone who grows in the way that Jaylen Brown did. It's one of the most impressive development stories in recent history.
Yeah,
but he could be. That's the annoying thing.
It's
he
rare.
could be.
But
he self-sabotages himself.
It's over. That's long gone.
He self-sabotaged himself.
That was gone a year ago.
Don't misunderstand what I'm saying. He has the ability to do it. A lot of people have the ability to get there, The problem is he still does the same self-sabotaging crap that never gives him the momentum to build on it.
Brother,
Even so far this year.
29% from three. And
brother, he'll be lucky if
31%
he's
left.
Andrew Wiggins from 2022.
Yeah,
Oh, I agree.
He'll be lucky.
agree.
If he gets
33%.
But it's not a talent issue. That's what I keep saying. It's not a talent issue with Jaden McDaniels.
Yeah, I don't think it
It
ever
is-
really. Here's
it's
the
a little
thing.
bit of talent, yeah.
I get what he's saying
Offensively.
because the league is so talented. It's hard to just point out and say it's a talent issue. I get it. Like Jaden McDaniels is probably like he probably shows you shit, not in the game, obviously, but he probably shows you shit that he's like super talented. And he could probably do it.
He shows stuff in games, dude. I mean, he'll get you off the dribble for a 20-point per game type fadeaway,
There's
off
moments.
the dribble in isolation, and get to the rim and poster somebody. He has all the 6'10 fluid touch. He has all of that, but he never gives himself in rhythm, man. He fouls in the first 2 minutes. He sits on the bench, doesn't play for another 15. He comes back in, has to build that momentum again. There's a certain point where it's foul trouble, and some of the mental stuff that he does, it just ruins any momentum he can add, regardless of the talent he has. It's crazy. It's like Cat self-sabotages himself. Jaden does it to a whole other level. There's if Jaden got rid of fouling, dude, the leap he would take would be freaking incredible. But some things you just can't take out of people, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Wow. What a way to end that. Okay.
So, okay. Sorry, Jaden. You broke my heart, man. You broke my heart. But
temporary
27th overall pick. 29th
28.
overall pick. I mean,
28.
he's already 29.
He's already reached.
Oh,
he
wait,
went
I'm
28.
sorry.
No,
No,
Malachi
I'm
Flynn
sorry,
went
James.
29.
Because my eyes are failing me right now.
He's
Yeah,
already
28.
reached heights past the
Then
28th
eight
pick
looked like a
anyways.
nine.
So he's
I don't know.
He's
He already
exceeded
has exceeded
expectations.
expectations pretty
Yep.
much.
He's
So
exceeded expectations. You guys
At
paid
one
him
point-
$27 million.
At one point, he was the projected number one pick. I don't know if you guys remember that. There's a point going into his junior year where he was considered the guy in his class.
Brother said his junior year. I see what you tried to do there.
In high school, I've been following these guys forever, man. I remember in high school, man, it was
yeah. Vernon
people were
Carey
like,
and Nico
is he
Manning
the
were
next
up there,
Kevin
too.
Durant? That was a thing.
There was a
I
point
mean,
where we thought his brother was better than him.
Yeah, I had never thought that before.
Yeah,
But-
yep. His brother was a junior in high school. He was kind of a dog.
I mean, Jaden was at one point number one in his class. It didn't last that long. He fell to 7, but he was at one point the guy in that class before Edwards and Wiseman emerged, and as Edwards reclassified as well. So, plus that was a weird class. Lamelo Ball was 40th in that because of his Lithuania ventures.
Yeah,
But-
our academy. No.
It's crazy. Remember the Julian Newman versus Lamelo Ball debates?
He's terrible. He's terrible. He's not a basketball player. He should start doing those I wouldn't even say do those things, those YouTube basketballs, because they actually play dead serious. They actually play really dead serious. I don't even think he the way he just play is just not basketball. It should be like the Globetrotters. Bro, did you see his college tape? It was on Twitter the other day.
I know he shot 3 for 18 the other day.
He took a step back 3, but it was so far from the 3-point line. It's why are you shooting that, bro? He did dribble, step back, and it was just who picked this guy up, man?
He's 5'3". There's a certain point where that just doesn't work. in
Muggsy
basketball.
Bowles was 5'5", and he knew how to play ball.
5'3". He also
true.
was fortunate enough to play in an area where he could hand check and stuff like that to help him
Hey,
defensively.
listen, man, IQ is IQ. It travels. So some
Yeah.
people just don't have the IQ.
I think this is a great way to transition to our LaMelo Ball conversation, by the way.
Mhm.
And so LaMelo Ball, I'm going to check how the game is going right now. So we're recording
That was
kind of
rough double digits.
Sunday evening, so they're losing by a lot. Okay.
Still, it could come back.
13-point game.
Yeah,
Oh my
it's not-
gosh, Cavs got 72 in the second half or first half. That's crazy. Evan Mobley was 16 on 6 for 7 shooting.
Yep.
Jaden, take notes, man. But okay.
Take Evan
So-
Mobley notes.
Well, yeah, because Evan Mobley, he had his own mental issues that he just kind of overcame, like his passiveness. It's different issues, but
Maybe you guys need a new
Evan
coach.
Mobley's overcome them.
Maybe you need a new coach to uplift Jaden, man. That's what happened to Mobley.
I don't know, man. I just think my boy, he needs something. I don't know what it is. Maybe we need to get his best friend on the coaching staff. Just some sort of emotional, just he's there with somebody. I don't know what to do, man. I love Jaden so much, man. I don't know what the answer is, man. But he's got He's got issues with the processing of the floor and how to overcome it. Okay, why are we talking about Jaden? Let's move
I
on.
don't know why we're on that still.
Okay, we're still talking about Jaden.
He's not
I
Evan
love you,
Mobley as a
Jaden.
ball handler or passer or anything like that.
I'm still a Jaden fan. I always will be.
He's on your team.
I am
He's
too.
not.
I am too. He ain't no Evan Mobley.
Yeah.
No, but I'm telling you, man, the talent's ridiculous. It kills my heart. But so speaking of LaMelo, I'll go straight to the chase. Is LaMelo Ball a winning or losing player? Can he be a transformative franchise player? Rev, you go first.
Transformative franchise player. Here's the thing with that question. It's so hard to, like, nowadays go to a low market team and kind of build them up. Like we've seen cases, Giannis is one of them. Ant-Man is another one. Just off the top of my head, I can't remember the rest of them. Zion, to a point, was supposed to be that guy for the Pelicans. Chris Paul for the Hornets was that. And I think we expect so much of these players to kind of come in and be the game changers. Top 3 picks, top 4 picks, top 5 picks. Here's the problem with LaMelo. The problem with LaMelo is his first year, they were mid. They made the play-in. LaMelo was amazing to get them there, dealing with injuries. Year 2, they made the play-in again. Ralston was a little funky, dealing with injuries. Year 3, they were horrible, dealing with injuries. Now we're at year 4, and you've kind of, as an organization, you haven't really built up a profound young core. I mean, you have LaMelo, you have Brandon Miller, who's not playing well right now. You have Mark Williams, who hasn't started his year yet. He's dealing with a bunch of injuries, and then you have Trey Mann, who you found out of OKC's rust bucket of just young players who might be good, might not be good. And Trey Mann's pretty solid. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Trey Mann is really solid for you, but you haven't really developed anything profound or sound with this team. So now you're sitting there looking at this roster and like, boom, what do you do? I mean, we can go look at the Cleveland Cavaliers, right? Let's tie these two teams. Darius Garland was a top 5 pick. They picked Darius Garland to kind of be their guy, their point guard. His rookie year was arguably one of the worst rookie years I've ever seen in my life for a guard. Complete, terrible. Year 2, boom, he plays really well. They bring in Evan Mobley. They bring in Jared Allen. Even before they bring in D. Mitch, you can see this team kind of ascending, to a really good basketball team. They were in the play-in a couple of times, and they were bringing in talent. Then they bring in that next star to kind of pair with DG. We're at that point with LaMelo where we don't know if he can be the guy, but we know he is a guy in a sense of he's really good. His 3-point shot is electric. He's a really good playmaker. Defensively, I've seen him this year put in more effort on that defensive end. I've seen him definitely put in a lot more effort as prior to the years. I guess he feels like this team is a lot more competitive the years before. And I think this team right now is fun, exciting, but it's not good enough. So is he a winning player? Is he a losing player? I feel like that's a tough question to ask because obviously he's on a losing franchise. He's on a losing team. So you probably would think automatically he's a losing player. But no, I don't think that. I think his game style, his gameplay can contribute to winning. I think we've seen him in the 4th quarter be that this year, a winning player, be clutch as hell, be able to make plays for his team. So I wouldn't call him a losing player. I just think, a lot of these times you're in a really tough situation and, you're trying to do the best you can, but you just don't have enough talent around you to really propel this team.
Right. It's a tough conversation because LaMelo Ball is in many ways kind of an anomaly. His first 2 years in the NBA went really well. Second year, he's leading a top 10 offense, a 43-win team, and it's one of the best shooting teams in the NBA. And at that point in time, the Hornets were this high vibes team with a lot of potential, a lot of young guys blossoming, and LaMelo was part of that. He was the face of that. The next 2 years, LaMelo misses 106 games. He played, 58 games, years 3 and 4 due to injuries, mostly ankle related. He comes back this season in year 5, averaging 30 points, 6 rebounds, and 5 assists. Despite his ascension, he's making 39% of his threes off pull-ups, which is insane. He's taking over 10 a game. He's one of the most efficient pull-up shooters in the game, and he has that creativity as both a ball handler and a passer to be an engine of an offense. The difference is between maybe him and a Tyrese Halliburton. Partly why the Hornets are not exceeding expectations. Again, the most to have talented wings like Brandon Miller is in a slump. Miles Bridges. Trey Mann's playing quite well, but then you look at a player like, say, Josh Green playing poorly after going from Dallas. And, Josh Green, yes, going from Dallas to Charlotte. LaMelo Ball doesn't have a filter. in the shot selection department, in the decision making. And I feel like a lot of the time his play style doesn't really elevate the supporting pieces because he is more of a self creator. And I wonder if he can ever get the most out of his passing potential by being more of a initiator for his teammates and setting up guys, because he so often settles for these 3-point looks without breaking the paint and really collapsing the defense that it makes the Hornets offense really a pickup offense, opposed to being a scheme and a philosophy of generating open looks, attacking, creating an advantage by drawing two defenders, and then opening up a mismatch or a transition, close out because a defender's trying to maybe double Lamelo. There's just not a whole lot of variety. And I think partly it's because you have a young head coach. But at the same exact time, I think a lot of the Hornets struggles is that LaMelo's still picking up where he left off in year 2. And he's still a really young player. And it's hard to evaluate him the same way you do with Tyrese Halliburton, because Halliburton has played a lot more games, a fellow guard from that 2020 draft class. So I don't think LaMelo Ball is a losing player. I think the talent is clearly there for him to be a all-NBA caliber guard. And that says a lot because there's so many of them. The production is there. I do believe, though, he needs to start to evolve his game and kind of be more of a team-oriented player where his production is not going to be 30 points a game. And I think that really just requires the coaching staff and his teammates kind of elevating around him. Because like Riv said, when he was drafted by the Hornets, this was a dysfunctional team trying to be competitive. And since then, they haven't found that identity. I think Lamelo's part of that. He can become it, but there's just no philosophy right now offensively. And that's how this team finds themselves bottom 5 in offensive rating even still.
I agree with everything you said in terms of just situation is really important, and Charlotte just hasn't put the right players around him at any point. They come in right away. They're trying to be competitive, and then he's been injured for a few years, and not yet. Maybe eventually some of those really tough years become a long-term advantage, like maybe Brandon Miller becomes the second star or even the main star. There's a lot of possibilities, but there's no doubt that it's incomplete. But I think when people talk about LaMelo Ball, just not even talking about the injuries, the situation, the winning-losing stuff's so stupid. It's so situation predicated. Like if Anthony Edwards ends up on Detroit, we're talking about him way differently. It's very situation predicated, but
oriented. Yeah.
LaMelo Ball is a superstar talent, just beyond superstar talent. How many players in basketball have a chance to be a top 10 shooter, ball handler, and passer in the NBA? And how many of them are 6'7"?
One, Luka Doncic. That's it.
Yeah. It's LaMelo Ball and it's Luka Doncic. And he doesn't have the perfect habits yet. He's not the most intuitive on-ball defender. He's not physical. And there's questions about his leadership, which hasn't been developed because he hasn't had good veterans around him early on. There's questions about that. But if Charlotte can just channel everything right, if Charles Lee can be the right coach, they can give in some of those veterans in the future. If they best channel this kid's talent, who's only 23 years old, I believe his ceiling is underplayed. I do think there's a world where this is an MVP type candidate because he's such a unique talent. And it's going to take a lot of maturing to get to that talent. But based on the circumstances, he's done about just as much as you could ask of a guy in that situation. His scoring's going up every year. His efficiency's getting better. And while his assists don't reflect it necessarily, he's still one of the very best passers in the NBA. Yeah. So he's trying defensively. There's a lot of great signs. He's younger than Cade Cunningham. Like, people forget how young he was when he got drafted. I truly believe this is still a premier young franchise player, and he just needs to be in the right circumstance to channel it, because outside LeBron James, if you're on the wrong team, you're cooked. And let's just hope LaMelo Ball doesn't fall victim to that.
Right.
No, I agree. I think it's really like tough because you mentioned it, like it really is just place dependent. Like we're talking about like guys like him, like Cade, who are just in situations that have been completely dreadful in their time being there, that it's hard to really gauge on what they are as a player unless you really sit there and you watch every game. And nobody's going to sit there and watch every game of a really bad basketball team. That's just like not feasible. So I think with LaMelo, though, you mentioned it, superstar talent, has all the tools in the world. You have the perfect size. You have the ball handling. You have the shooting. It is, though, about just being more, expanding your offensive game, being more aware of the fact that you are 6'7", 6'8", get to the rim, be more creative in the pick and roll, be a little bit less, settle for the three ball a lot of the times, kind of work a floater into your game, kind of just get to the rim. You are 6'7", 6'8". Like, just be more creative on offense. If you could do that, then, like perfect destination for LaMelo if he does get traded, Orlando.
Yes, that'd be perfect. And the reason why the Hornets lack physicality, the reason why guys like Brandon Miller and LaMelo is not really the one that's underperforming, but specifically Brandon Miller is because this is a very talented and skilled team that lacks that toughness that so many of these contenders do pry on. And today's NBA, where you have those teams that are both physically gifted and skilled, those are the ones who do actually maximize their potential, like a Magic, a Cleveland Cavaliers, a Dallas Mavericks. Now, granted, they have a top 3 player in the world, but so often when I watch LaMelo play, it's a matter of him needing to scale down a little bit more, which is partly cutting down the turnovers, taking better shots. He's never going to be a great finisher. I think partly it's because of his frame. He's not the strongest player, but he can still be a skilled and crafty one. And I think there's small parts of his game he can develop, and they're very coachable. They're very manageable. It's him shooting better than the catch. But the innate God-given traits are things that he's had from the time that he was drafted. So I think he'll stick around in Charlotte for a long time, and it's on a front office, which is unproven, and being able to get the absolute most out of him. There's a ton of talent around him. I just think some of these players like Bridges and Miller are underperforming, and they should play better in the second half of the year. And beyond that, you look at Charlotte's depth. Moussa Diabate is a guy that's averaging 14 rebounds the last couple of games. Mark Williams hasn't played. Nick Richards is one of the best backup bigs in the NBA. Cody Martin is a decent backup forward. Josh Green should play better. You have Tijan Salon, a top 6 overall pick, who has not played well, but there's still a lot of upside for him long term. Mm-hmm. This team is filled with young talent. Maybe they have a little bit too much of it, but I think once it starts to marinate, we'll see that LaMelo's not a losing player. And I think that's something that will really crystallize once the head coach is able to establish a system. And partly right now, he does not have the personnel, especially from that toughness element, which I
like Charles Lee. I like Charles Lee a lot.
I do too.
I think he's one of those premier assistants because of his time San Antonio and Boston that was in a winning environment long enough to understand how to build a defensive scheme and a philosophy. But there have been a little bit of injuries too. So I think we can't really have a gauge on if he's going to be the right head coach until the end of the year.
I also think when we're talking about players this young, when we're just talking about, okay, maybe get to your spots better, maybe don't be too gambling or don't have too much of a gambling nature to your game. That's just such common young player, low-hanging fruit stuff. At this age, like the most important thing we mentioned to refine those things, you need the right coach so you don't build bad habits. Mm-hmm. But, I mean, I think a winning and losing trait is whether you have the it factor or you don't. And so far this season, who's been the best closer in the league so far this year? It's been Lamelo Ball. He's leading the league in fourth quarter scoring. He's had some buzzer beaters. He's had, I think 6 of his last 7 games, he's gotten over double digits in the fourth. He's averaging nearly 12 points a game in the fourth quarter right now. He's a tough shot maker. He's not afraid of the moment. And I truly believe in the right context, that can be a superstar. If you put these superstar talents in the wrong situation, because these players are so impressionable, they can never get there. And I worry that could turn into LaMelo Ball because in a lot of ways, that's what happened to Karl Anthony Towns. But I truly hope for him he gets the right pieces around him. And just to kind of add a little fun hypothetical, because we mentioned Orlando a little bit. Speaking of Charlotte, you mentioned physicality as well for Charlotte and shooting for Orlando. Who would win in a Franz Wagner or Brandon Miller swap? I'm just curious.
Neither.
You don't think so?
Right now, Charlotte would win that. Long term, I think it would be an even trade.
I think Brandon Miller is going to be a stud. I still believe that.
I think he is. I don't think he's what Orlando would need right now. And I know Franz is playing at a high level without Banchero right now, but I don't think he's what Charlotte needs right now. So I think they both lose. Like I think they're both right now comfortable with what they have.
I agree. Franz would make him the better team right now with how much he breaks the paint, with how consistently he drives and the tracks too. He'd easily make Charlotte a better team. So right now, I'd say yes.
Better, but like
if I'm the Magic, a team that's long been deprived of that consistent high-level shooting, you look at the upside of Brandon Miller and you say he can be a better player than Franz, but because it's kind of a little bit unlikely that he reaches maybe his full highest ceiling, you're fine with having what Franz currently is, which is that borderline all-star with a really unique skill set as number 2 to 3 player.
A unique skill set? What are you talking about?
Franz Wagner is one of the best drivers and one of the best finishers. He's
Is he
a
up to
ball
shooting?
defender.
Is the
He's,
3-point shot? You told
yeah,
me?
the shooting's a little bit of a question, but Franz Wagner brings a skill set which many teams could use.
I agree.
Because so often we have.
Yeah, I agree. I think Charlotte, though, I think they like if Franz goes there right now, I still think they're a playing team. Like how I thought before, I would think the same. Like nothing would change in my opinion.
I think the thing with this conversation, I'm hoping that Franz Wagner and Paolo Banchero doesn't become like the Jays before the championship. Can they play together?
It already is.
Right.
It's already getting there. It's not all the way out there yet, but we're already getting there.
Mm-hmm.
And
How
you get a guy
been
like
healthy?
Brandon Miller who can play on and off the ball, and he's just a flipping sniper, and he's 6'8", right? So there's that, and LaMelo's good off the ball, and Franz can just,
True.
bully his way to the paint. I don't know. I kind of like the long-term fit for both sides a little more in that circumstance.
I can see Brandon Miller being a great fit off of Apollo, and I like that a lot. But now, hold up. Riv, you talk a lot of shit about Franz's shooting. He's making 35% of his threes. He's a good three-throw shooter. Mid-range is the only part that I really hesitate because he has a low
Oh my God, Wilder.
The mid-range shot he
for
dipped.
35%. Oh,
That's average.
At this point, I'm praying for 35% for
You make
Dante.
it seem like Franz is a bad shooter.
First of all, he was. Let's
For 1 year.
his rookie year, he wasn't that good either.
Guys can't have a down year. Darius Garland had a down year. You
Darius Garland showed you. First of all, John, cut it out. First of all, Franz Wagner showed you one time that he's an okay shooter, the other time that he's not. Garland showed you multiple times that he's a good shooter.
Yes.
Second of all, if Franz is going to be in Charlotte playing off ball, you can't be not being able to shoot the ball. That's why I asked.
You're saying he can't shoot.
No, I asked. No.
He makes. Oh,
I asked you, John. I asked you. That's all I asked you.
For 3 or 4 seasons, he's been at 35%, 34.5.
35 is not moving me. I'm sorry. It's just
for a forward, it's average. And
for a forward, it's not average. I'm willing to gamble that.
35.
When he's 6'10", he does the stuff he does. If he can hit 35% and just keep you honest, I do think that opens up a lot. The problem last year in the playoffs was he couldn't hit a jumper. Like he couldn't even.
Is 35% keeping you honest?
Game seven was bad.
Is 35% keeping you honest? Like if you're like, I don't think that's keeping you honest.
I think 35% keeps you honest, especially if it's more in the upper 30s, like wide open threes. I think if you're at that point.
Percentage on wide open threes, John? Find that out real quick.
What's Franz shooting wide open threes this season?
In general.
This season, on wide open threes, this can't be right. Is this last season? Yeah, this is last season. Last season, he shot 31% on.
Yeah, that can't happen. That can't happen.
Now, this season, it's got to be better because he's shooting 8% better from three. The number is. Oh, shit.
John. All you have to do.
What the hell?
John, all you have to do.
All right, let's 14 game sample size. Franz is shooting 28% on wide open threes, 6+ feet or more, NBA.com. But
honest
on open threes, he's at 42%. And on tight threes, which is small volume, he hasn't taken many. It's 0.4 a game. So we're talking about like 5 attempts here. He's like 2 of 5 this season.
So catch and shoot in general, he's shooting poor. But wide open, he's shooting 42%.
Well, very wide open, he's shooting very poorly, but slightly open 4 to 6. Fine.
Keep the defense.
That can't happen.
Ass.
That can't happen. He
4 to
needs
6
to be
feet.
at least
Leave him a little bit open, he'll be chilling. Wide open, it's a problem.
That wide open thing is definitely like a psychological, like, why the hell am I so wide open? And then you miss, you're like, I see why I'm wide open. Yeah, no, I get it. Yeah, I mean, we'll see. Because playoffs, he was really bad. So we'll see how it goes.
2 years ago in 2023, he shot 42% wide open looks and 31% open.
That's weird.
There's two type of shooters. There's two type of shooters in the NBA and just real life in the YMCA. The shooter, if you leave him wide open, you're like, WTF is wrong with you? I'm lacing that shit. That's one person. And then the other person is, why am I so wide open? I can't make this. There's two type of personalities. And usually that's a pretty good correlation with if you have it or you don't. So
right. My worry with Franz, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, you're good. You continue.
My worry with Franz is not 3-point shooting. It's mid-range shooting because he has a lower dip on his pull-ups. And that's something from the 3-point shot, which makes it a little bit more tricky in that 10 to 16 foot area. to kind of get a shot up over a defender because you're just lowering the ball to a point where it's not as natural. I think that's what holds him back from being someone who could average 27 points a game. And that's what kind of not stagnates, but holds him at being 22 points a game. Now, the last 5 games, Franz Wagner has been hooping. Some of the teams have been really shitty, like Washington, Charlotte defensively, and just all together, and the 76ers as well. But I think we're seeing he can still grow because he's a really good passer. He's averaging 6 assists during the stretch. He's gotten better as a rebounder. He's averaging a career high right now in steals, being a little bit more of a playmaker on that end of the floor. And he's not finishing quite as well, but I think he'll get right back up to the high 60s. So we're seeing that incremental improvement. But I just think functionally as a mid-range shooter, that's where he holds himself back. And that's something where he should get into the lab and really focus on that in the offseason. Maybe he never develops it, but I like to see him at least show some growth there.
If I just watched LaMelo multiple times go to his left hand, go to the rim in his left hand, and shoot fadeaway floaters. I don't like that. That's just not.
I agree.
Yeah, I don't like that. You need to fix that. That's terrible, especially on like big men. Why are you shooting a fadeaway floater? Like, get into their chest, get the foul call, man. What are we doing? Use your left hand. For Franz, yeah, John, I'm waiting. I'm waiting for this shooting to go up that you keep telling me about. That's supposed to go up. Just wait.
League average is what he's shooting.
So. Yeah, we just read the wide open numbers, brother. I don't know, but we'll see how that goes. Listen, Banchero will be back soon, I think. So hopefully that's the idea for them, because I like realistically, I want to see those two play together. Like Wilder mentioned, and we've seen. I don't know if it's Orlando Twitter or just. It's weird because I've seen fans of Orlando really want Banchero gone and want Franz to run his own team. Yeah, like run his own team and like. It's weird. I've never seen a team who hates their start. Like, it's weird. I don't know.
I don't think that represents the Magic fan base.
Yeah, I don't like. I seen this other day. This dude tweeted, and this was after Franz had a good game. He was like, "Franz is so clearly the number one option. We should trade Banchero for a point guard and let Franz run a heliocentric offense." And I'm like, "What the fuck? Who are you? Are you the G? You're a terrible GM. I hope you don't do this in like 2K because it doesn't even make sense. Like, why would you ever do that?"
You see crazy things on Twitter. I remember Edwards had a slow start to his 3rd year, and I saw Wolves fans making Benedict Mathurin for Anthony Edwards trade swaps. And I was like,
I would have worked out well for you guys.
Do you guys remember how Benedict Mathurin started his rookie year, though? He was just dropping 20 every night for the first
month. He's playing good this year.
He's also balling this year, too.
He's really good. I love Benedict, but yeah, you see everything on Twitter. I'm sure there's a small group of Anthony Edwards or people on Timberwolves Twitter who wish Edwards was the one traded, not Cat. I'm sure there's a group that think that. You just find everything. Delusional. That's why social media is free. But okay, so we're going to transition quickly to the last part of the show. And let's just talk about some rookies because it's been a weird class. A lot of random draft picks are the ones showing the best productions. So, John, give me a stock riser and dropper for you.
Let me start off with, all right, so do you want to do stock up or stock down or NBA rookie ladder? I like stock up, stock down as a second.
I do too, because there's not many players that's going to be on the rookie ladder.
Yeah, it's like 4 guys.
Yeah, they don't play.
Bob, both 2 Grizzlies, and then...
It's really, honestly, all the Washington rookies.
Washington and Memphis.
Yeah, they all play. Thank God, because they need to be playing.
They have to play.
Yeah, they do have to play. Minnesota guy doesn't play. Houston's guy rarely plays.
And those are good teams. I mean, like none of those other kids that play on that.
Tyson from Cleveland, he's not going to play. So
no,
yeah,
Tyson's good, man.
Even Chicago, even Mataz, he doesn't really play that much.
I met Mataz after the Knicks game.
Oh, you did? When did you
One of my best friends took a picture with him. I'm walking outside MSG, and there's a tunnel where players come out from. And I only saw 1 Knick and 3 Bulls. But when you're in the middle of New York City, and then you see a random 6'10" individual in a Bulls sweatsuit uniform with a hoodie over him, with his agent walking right next to him, wherever it was, you said it's probably an NBA player. I took a close look. I go, oh, it's Mataz Buzelis. My friend caught a pic with him. Anyways, I'm not gonna mention him because he's only playing 9 minutes a game right now. I love his upside long term. I think he'll be one of the better players in this class.
He seems like a cool dude.
He is.
He's really on all the social media stuff.
He took a pic with my boy. He's like, yeah, come over here. And they took a flick. And somehow no one noticed there was an NBA player in New York because I was the only one that called him out. It's like, good game, good win. So let's start off stock up, stock down, NBA rookie edition through 1 month. First player up, scorching hot from 3-point land now. Jared McCain, averaging 15 points a game. how high can we possibly be? And what's his upside here at Philadelphia? Because he's been a huge, I guess, bright spot for a struggling start.
I'll go stock up easily. I think he's probably the most needed rookie in the rookie class because Philly is lacking in the depth department. Shout out to Sams. He's a Golden State fan. He said Jared has a lot like Steph-like in him in terms of just the off-ball movement, the relocation on the offensive end, and just being able to just consistently run around, find the open jumper. And I can see that a lot of his game. Ceiling, I'll just go for this season. I think he can be like a Malik Monk for them. I think that is going to be a key vital thing for them. Just a guy, another creator. Because let's just be honest, Maxey isn't really a initiator. That's not his vibe. What we want Maxey to do is go get buckets because Maxey is a bucket getter. Jared McCain, now he's showing you a little bit of that playmaking chops, and that's kind of what you want to see from him. So I could see like Malik Monk, like not play style, but like role for this Philadelphia Sixers. Stock all the way up.
I like that. I would say Jared McCain definitely has been, when you count 5+ game sample sizes, the most impressive rookie. And the Steph Light comp is very real. I saw that one transition play where he goes full court, kicks out of the corner, right, relocates to the 3-point line. That was Steph like. Those type of plays, that could really make a big difference in Philadelphia, especially taking the pressure off of George and Embiid if he can maintain some sort of production like that in such an offense. So that I like that one a lot. I think one guy who I can't stop, like just think about how he played against Minnesota, Donovan Clingan, every time he plays, for me, is very impressive because right away, in my opinion, he's been the most impressive rookie defender because he's just an absolute wall in the paint. He's barely playing. I think he's playing, how many minutes a game? He's playing 16 minutes a game, and he's 6th in blocks right now. 16 minutes a game, he's getting you 2.2 blocks a game right now. So if you do the math, it's about 4.5 blocks per 36. And he just alters everything around the paint. He gets rebounds. I think that game he had, I think he had 8 blocks, almost a 20-20 game. He looked so impressive. Yeah. And I just watched a couple of those games on top of that, and I was like, he's playing right now. He has 3 blocks. I think he has franchise center potential, and I really love what he's done. I think there's even a world where he's the best prospect on Portland. There's a world, I wouldn't say he is the best prospect on Portland, but there's a world where he becomes that. So I think shout out to Donovan Clingan because I think right now he's the most polished big man rookie in the league, and that includes Zach Edey.
Yeah, he's been pretty awesome in the opportunities he's gotten. It's been kind of few and far between until recently because of how much depth they have. Can I go back to Jared McCain because I have a lot to say about him? Jared McCain is probably the prospect I underrated most, not only in this draft cycle, but in recent history. I thought it was a mistake that the Sixers took him over Dalton Knecht because I thought Knecht was just a better athlete with more size that was an equally good shooter. And with these 5-6 games, these last 5 games have shown me, as he averaged 26 points, 20-year-old, by the way, doing this, taking 10 3-point attempts a game, making 44%, is that Jared McCain's one of the best shooting prospects we've seen. And we saw a few in this class. Reed Shepard was amazing as a freshman. He's one of them. You could say Connect's another because he's making 40% of his threes in year one. Jared McCain is making 50% of his catch and shoot threes. And that matters because in an offense, you have arena MVP. He's not playing at that level just now because he's working his way in the shape. But then Paul George and Tyrese Maxey, there's not a whole lot of opportunities in the ball. So when that big three is healthy, Jared McCain's going to be that 4th to 5th piece offensively. If he's making 50% of his catch and shoot threes and moving consistently off the ball, he's a plug and play piece often in the starting lineup. Why I was lower on him at 6'2" with average measurables, not a great athlete, not a very good finisher vertically, is that I didn't think he would translate physically very well to the NBA. But the thing that's allowed him to be useful beyond just the 3-point shooting is that he plays at his own pace. He's got a decent feel. He's got a functional handle. And if you try to do a hard closeout, he can make a play off of the line and really has that floater. He's making his mid-range shots as well. There's a little bit more than just the 3-point shooting because his base and his balance is impressive, but he's got some of the best touch we've seen. And I think that shows itself in the pull-up shooting at times because he's hitting some ridiculous transition throughs. But I think Jared McCain, with the way he's playing right now, it's hard to see him maintain the production when Tyrese Maxey comes back. But what really matters is that for Philly, he's been another one of those unsung heroes that not too many people had high expectations for at year one. But right now, he fits in so perfectly into this lineup because they're second to last in three-point shooting. Oubre can't make a shot. Caleb Martin cannot hit water from a boat. And then you have, Embiid struggling a little bit. He was 2 of 11 in his first game, 5-15 a second. Karshan Yabusele, your boy Riv, he's like one of their better shooters this year. Yeah, you try to pronounce it on the podcast. It sounds like you're trying to do a words 12 syllables, and it was brutal. They have no shooting whatsoever off that bench. But that's actually not true. They have Kyle Lowry playing quite well, but outside of him, they have none.
Big
so
booty.
When you have Jared McCain making the shots that he has, but the consistency and just kind of that complementary value, it really does bring something they sorely need because you have a lot of guys minimum contracts right now. So to get Jared McCain playing this well on a rookie deal, it could make a world of a difference if you have a healthy Joel Embiid playing at MVP level.
It never hurts. I mean, at this point, I think we talk about Kentucky guards, but any undersized guard that Daryl Morey identifies, I think is just a hit because he took Tyrese Maxey and now he's taken Jared McCain. And it's going to be very interesting for Philadelphia this year because in most circumstances, Daryl Morey's had a lot of chances and he's been like, I swear, let me get this one chance at another star. Let me get James Harden. Oh, Ben Simmons won't work. Let me sell him. And then let's wait for Paul George. And now this year isn't working. I wonder if Jared McCain is going to buy him a little more time if this year is not a success because Embiid and Paul George are hurt because he's still finding a way to identify young prospects at a very high level. And if Philadelphia doesn't recover this year and they have the number 5 pick, I mean, why wouldn't you want more? Exactly. So I think there's a possibility that Jared McCain's going to buy Daryl Morey more time if Philadelphia doesn't work out this year.
Let's say, what hypothetically, have a little fun in this. They get the 4th pick in the draft. Now you're sitting there like, we have an opportunity here. And I wouldn't trade the pick. I would not trade
I wouldn't either.
Only because Embiid is aging, PG is aging. You can't go get you have to bring somebody in to just hopefully make it work with these aging stars. And you got good vets. So it's like that would be dope. Honestly, that's like worst best case scenario. Like they flame out this year. All right, well, we got these 2 guys on contracts anyways, so we might as well try it again next year. And then they bring in the top 4 pick, and it's like, all right, now things look a little prettier, So that's worst best case scenario for them.
Igor Demon, have you guys watched him yet from BYU?
I did start watching a little bit.
I've been watching him, brother. I've been locked in.
He's so good, man. I love his game.
They need an initiator alongside Maxey. Not that Maxey's not, but he's more of a bucket getter, like Riv said. So if you get yourself a supersized point guard that can open up your offense and make shots too, that would be a scary outlook for the entire Eastern Conference.
Igor has a big game coming up. I forgot against who, but I don't get moved by those games against Idaho and shit. I'm not.
That's
I'm
fair.
Not big,
No, I agree. But the way he moves the ball offensively kind of gives me Halliburton vibes. Just the ability just to be a constant mover of the offense. The accuracy, I think the most underrated thing about passing isn't finding the open guy, but the timing of where to give it to your open guy. And he's one of the best just getting it into the pocket, getting it in stride passers I've seen in years. No, I just think that playmaking works.
It's going to be interesting to see him against a much better team that might be able to speed him up, get him offer him different looks. Because I'm actually excited.
I agree.
I said before this year, I was talking to who's in the Discord, and I was like, they asked me who had an opportunity to jump into the top 5 if it was a guy, and I was like Igor. I think Igor has the chance to really sneak up on people and jump in the top 5, 6'9", 6'10" size. Not more of a guard than a wing. Able to shoot the ball, and he's his offense, his game is simple. It's nothing extravagant. He doesn't need to do too much, not too much extra dribbling. It's very right to the point, and you love that from a guy who 6'8", 6'9", able to just get to his spot. So I'm really excited to see, and he's at a situation where he can kind of do what he wants. He has the keys, and he can show you his full package. And I love that. I love guys who do that. They can go and they can show you. So, and with Nolan not playing well overseas right now, VJ kind of showing you the athleticism, but not showing you the full total package. In Cooper Flag, I watched him against Kentucky. I liked a lot from what I've seen him, but the offensive game obviously needs a little bit of work. So, there's a lot of opportunities for Igor to even climb to 1, because we saw Ace Bailey play yesterday. Screams Jabari Smith.
Yeah,
oh my God.
a little bit.
I don't like the shot diet, but Dylan Harper has looked good. So Igor has an opportunity to maybe even be number 1.
Igor is 11 of 20 from three-point land through 4 games. He leads the Big 12 in assists and steals because at that size, there's just the upside for him to have more of a complete impact on the game. And Dylan Harper, physically, he reminds me of James Harden so much. And it's so odd to talk about because this is someone I used to guard, and like he was in 7th grade, and now he's a 6'6", supersized guard that can do a bit of everything. You can't speed him up. He's a talented shooter. He's an innate passer. I think Harper and Denham are 2 of those guards who really do translate well to the NBA, and they have that all-star potential very early on in their careers. And this 2025 draft class could shake out to be similar to a 2018. Ace Bailey is the one guy who I look at and say I like watching his shot making at that size and impressive. You do see a little bit of that lack of explosiveness and that ability to get downhill to the rim that maybe kind of opens up that Michael Porter Jr. outcome for him, opposed to maybe, let's say,
no separation
Durant or Paul. The separation is something that is definitely going to be a question. Can he become that Paul George-led player, or is he more so Michael Porter Jr.?
I went to see Rutgers in St. Peter's, and I swear to God, Dylan Harper was the biggest player on the court. Like he's the most physically. Like I'm looking and I'm like, Dylan, if you don't get that ball and get to that rim, there is nobody on this court, not even your teammates that are stronger than you. Get to that ball, and he did it in the second half. Got to the rim. This class is
215.
Listen, those summer talks about this class and where people are going to go. Very exciting. Very exciting.
Absolutely. I think right now, I made a tweet yesterday, and I was like, early in the season, but my clear top 3 guys are Cooper Flagg, Dylan Harper, and Igor Demon. And I think for both Harper and Demon, the swing skill that might propel them into that number 1 conversation is when they start getting pressured against some of the elite defenses in college. How does their handle react? Because Igor, I still see stages where he gets a high pick and roll, and then he tries to transition and drive, and he's just like a little slow to it because his handle isn't the tightest in the world. When he's playing against some of the best guards in the country, just trying to go up on his grill, is he going to be able to take care of the ball? Will it take him out of his spots? I think that's really important, especially for a playmaker who wants to get to spots, to get to people to their best spots. I think if he can really show he has a sufficient enough handle to handle pressure, I think that's what people will start to look at and say, okay, this might be a number 1 pick.
Right. Harper's not going to have an issue with that. He gets so low to the ground at that size. I agree. And then he creates so much.
He plays like Cade.
What's
Brunson
up?
Is
plays like Cade.
He plays a little bit like Cade. He plays a little bit like Brunson as well, because he gets low to the ground, but then he soaks up so much space, not because he's a big player, but because he's got that turnaround fadeaway over his right shoulder. He creates 2 or 3 feet of room, and then he's a knockdown mid-range shooter from that spot. So he's really good at, especially as a lefty, just making it really challenging for guys to stay in front of him. And if you do keep up with him, he's a good enough passer to make a read and make an adjustment. So I think Harper's going to be a bona fide all-star in the NBA. He's easily, to me, one of the most NBA-ready players that I've ever seen, and he's not making his threes just now. I think he's going to be a really good shooter too. So he's like one of those can't-miss prospects to me if everything kind of checks out.
Plus, he's the son of an NBA player, and those aren't typically poor bets because those kids naturally are just more situated.
So if your son, so I've studied this and I've read it. If your dad was
correct
elite,
me on this.
If your dad was elite, you're going to be trash. But if your dad was okay or not really that guy, you're going to be elite. So like Steph, elite. Dad was okay,
solid.
Kobe.
Don't say his dad was okay. His dad was.
Ron was good.
You know what I mean? Like he was good, but he was nothing like no all-star nothing like that. Kobe's dad, he was good.
Dell was a 6th man of the year. One of the
best. Ron Harper versus Del Curry. It's not like it's.
Yeah, Ron Harper was solid. I think Dylan probably better. Like, look, Michael Jordan, greatest of all time. Suns.
Generational players who are just talent reliant, those guys don't work. But if you're from like a high IQ dad who played in the NBA, maybe not a superstar, but just a good starter who won championships, those guys are pretty good bets to come in with better coaching. And
Tim Hardaway, nice all-star. His son,
pretty good. I mean, pretty good.
He's average. Like he's
cool. Average. Let's be real.
He's cool.
He's good.
Tim Hardaway's a Hall of Famer. Son's average.
He's outplayed the 24th pick.
I do think Ron Harper gets a little bit underrated. I mean, he's a 5-time NBA champ, sure, but he was like a kind of like a Jerry Stackhouse, one of those guys who in his time period averaged so many points.
He was really good for Cleveland.
Today, he was getting a lot of buckets on some pretty poor Cleveland teams, and then later on the Cavaliers because he played in the Wait, no, I'm lying to you.
No, he was with Mark Price.
I'm sorry. He played in that.
And Brett Daugherty.
He played in that 89 team, which won 57 games. But when Ron Harper was first drafted, his first 2 years, there were 31 wins and then 42. So it was right before the Cavs got good. And then he eventually went to Clippers. The Clippers were the ones who kind of stuck with him in the leading score. But I do think it's a good point where, like, to be born into that situation where your dad was a high-end role player for 5 different championship teams, it does bring that kind of different level, that different layer of the way you're raised to really love the game. So
shout out to the Cleveland Cavaliers, though, in the 1986 NBA draft. That was not a great draft if we look at the actual draft. Unfortunately, that was, Brett Daugherty went 1, and then there's not a lot of great players after that. Len Bias was, of course, he passed away soon after, so he's a big what if. But, I mean, I'm pretty sure Cleveland in that draft, which was not a great draft, the 3rd overall guy did nothing.
Chris Washburn. Ironically, hold up.
He averaged like 3 points a game.
Harper. We were just talking about Ron Harper and Del Curry. They were also in that 86 draft.
Yeah, wow.
Ironically.
That's crazy. But Daugherty, and I think they got Harper and Price in that same draft. Not a very good draft.
Price was nice.
Second-round pick.
Price was drafted by the Mavericks, and the Cavaliers acquired him.
Yeah, that's a killer draft, man. That's crazy. So shout out to Cleveland. Do we close this podcast off of here, or do we end negatively and give stock droppers? What do you guys want to do?
I want to give more stocks to this rookie segment. All right, next up, we're going to continue after Jared McCain because he's an obvious stock up. The first overall pick, Zachary Rusache. Did I pronounce it right?
Hope so.
Rusache.
On the Atlanta Hawks. Not shooting too well, stock up or stock down?
Stock didn't move, I would say.
Yeah.
I still feel the same how I felt coming out. Like, I feel like he'll be a high-level role player. I think he'll have the talent and the skill set to complement Trae Young well. I just think Atlanta's kind of in a slump right now, and they're dealing with a lot of injuries at the moment. And, of course, the unsung hero, Dyson Daniels, is probably getting most of the shine, as well deserved in Atlanta. But I think Rusache, 6'10", long arms. I think he'll be fine. My stock hasn't moved and it hasn't dropped.
I totally agree. I think the jump shot, I didn't believe in the jump shot for half of last year because he was not a good jump shooter before, but you can just tell he's really worked on the mechanics where I do think he's better than the 24% from 3 he's shooting right now. Once he gets back into that mid-30s range, which I think he will, I think his impact is really going to shine more because instinctually defensively and even where to be offensively, he's already well above his years. And I think as Atlanta continues to, as he continues to get reps in Atlanta, especially with them, I think being pretty solid, I think he's going to be one of those rookies we'll be watching in March and April and whatnot.
Absolutely. I would have to say stock neutral. The shot's going to easily improve with the way it looks from 23% to, I would say, somewhere in the low 30s. And then, like you highlighted, he's going to earn minutes as the year goes on with his defense, his off-ball value, etc. Next name up, the second overall pick, Alex Sarr, who is currently shooting 36% from the field, but he's impacting the game in some other ways. Would you say the stock is up or down the way that he's shooting specifically?
Stock up, kind of. Like, I'm more like it went up like this. Like, it didn't really slightly, because I think defensively he's there. I think, and that's kind of what Washington is at. Like, they have Bub, they have Jordan Poole's playing really well. They have Keyshawn George. They got a couple guys that can kind of offensively get it going. I really pray they get Kyle Kuzma off the roster. He's really like holding them back. But I think they're a fun team. I think they're fun to watch. They're fun to just watch their guards gel. With Sarr, the offense is concerning. I agree. I don't think they have a real point guard on the team, though. And I think if they did have a legit, real, pure playmaking point guard on the team, somebody who is just easy to see reads, who can get him into the right spots, I think he would look a lot better. And Poole isn't that. Bub, I don't think is that right now either. But defensively, I think he's fine, which is why I'm like slightly up. Like, I think defensively, it's going to hold them over for a year or two.
I think Bub as a playmaker can get there. He reminds me of D'Angelo Russell, where there's a lot of passing upside. He's already averaging 5.5 assists as a rookie. That's super impressive so far. But yeah,
I like what Riv said. For the same reasons, I'll say slight stock down, though. And the reason why I would say slight stock down is because I agree on the defense. I'm not surprised about the defense. Instinctually, the length, the versatility, all that was in the NBL. My question in the draft was, what's his offensive identity? And it's the same question, but slightly more, because I don't know what he does at a B- level offensively right now.
Just C plus. I don't even know
He's
what he
C
does.
plus all above, if that.
That's
if
being
that.
generous.
Because he's trying to be a wing, but he doesn't have the skill set as a shooter specifically or a finisher. And he really settles a lot of time for those like fadeaways.
He needs to start looking at Jaren Jackson film.
Mm-hmm.
He needs to work on. This might sound funny. He has a really stiff upper body, or it feels like everything's fluid until the last part of the shot, and it's like ew. You know, he doesn't have anything offensively I feel comfortable about him getting to, and I don't know what the upside or the downside is. I'm not saying like I thought he had a high offensive upside. I'm not sure if he does, and he still is not a good rebounder, which he's a rookie. That's fine, but if he's I saw on Twitter someone call him Baguette Noel, and I can kind of see that, you know. So there's a lot of Nerlens Noel in his game, maybe, but a healthy Nerlens Noel is a good player. So let's keep that straight. Like I think Alex Sar's gonna be a solid player. I'm not sure what the upside is, and I think it could be there still, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
Yeah, there's a lot from the work on. My expectation is, can you reach a Nick Claxton level or that really valuable defensive player that does just enough offensively? I think he can get there. The last name I'm going to give you guys, Stephon Castle.
Oh, phew! Listen, stock all the way up, man. That's been one of my guys. John, you watch the show. You know how I feel about Castle. That's really my brother from another mother. Just defensively, he knows where to be at all times, and I think it's hard to really find rookies who come in and want to play defense right away. You know, it kind of takes them time. But I think him learning under Hurley, you know, winning a championship, being at UConn, it kind of gave him that chip on his shoulder. And then offensively, you know, not the greatest shooter, has shown some shooting lately. Playmaking, he's a good secondary creator. You know, just making the right pass, making the extra ahead pass to help the next guy get open. And I think Castle's handle was solid. So I would say stock up. He's definitely one of those guys that's going to be important for this team.
I'll say neutral because he was my number one prospect coming into the year. So I had him number one on my board. So I was a big Castle guy. I was telling you guys, I don't know what the offensive upside for Sarr is. I actually think Castle's upside offensively is underrated because if you go back to his high school film, it even flashes this year. He's a walking paint touch with unbelievable coordination, unbelievable body control. And that's where you start to see like the discount Shea comps on offense. He has some of that in his game. And, you know, the jump shot, he's shooting it with confidence. He's shooting it with range. And I think he's not efficient yet, but I think he's going to get more efficient over time. And I think I honestly think if I'd put my money on it, I think he's going to become the Robin in San Antonio. I'm a big Stephon Castle guy, and I thought he was the number one prospect going into this year. So I'll say neutral for the best reasons possible.
He's been starting his most recent 7 games, averaging 14 points, shooting 39% from 3 on 4.5 attempts, 4 assists, over a steal a game. I would say stock up recently. The start of the year, he was kind of struggling to find that rhythm, but aesthetically, his game, particularly as a ball handler and a catch and shoot shooter, has really come along. And it looks like he's grown in his skill set from last year. The finishing and the athleticism is also there, to where I agree. I think he can get downhill and really open a lot of things up. He's exceeded my expectations, so stock is definitely up for me.
Stud. So I think that's a great way to end the show. Stephon Castle, the best prospect in the 2024 NBA draft. Stock up. Everybody's seeing who he is. So that's good. Is there any final thoughts you guys have before we end the show?
He'll be better than Jimmy Butler.
Okay. I like that comp, by the way.
Steelers won a playoff game this year.
Stan?
And it may not be one. It might be
John,
2.
that's actually one of my whistle videos.
I saw you do it on the podcast.
Yeah.
I'll hear you do it again, and I'll sing your praises. You see Dell's trying to get a ratio on me today. I said to myself,
He did ratio you.
No, he didn't, because I ratioed him back.
Oh, you did? Oh, you got your win back? Okay.
I was in the toilet, and I say, I am going to expose this fraud.
Because the first one, he cooked you. He cooked you bad.
I couldn't really cook me too hard, because I was going to hit him up with a LeBron over Brandon Knight alley-oop. That was me.
Okay,
so,
I didn't see the next one. I got to go on Twitter and see the next
one. It was
one.
me saying the last time the Jets won a playoff game, and it started with Mitt Romney versus Barack Obama, the iPhone 4, the Madden 10 Xbox 360 cover, and like negative 140 pixels, and then Big Ben dancing into the end zone as the Steelers beat the Jets to advance the Super Bowl in 2010. So that was what I ratioed him with.
Yo, you know,
actually, pretty close right now.
Are you going tomorrow to the open gym?
Yes, I'll
Okay.
be there.
Okay. Excited.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm excited
Yeah,
to see
looking
you,
forward
man.
to it.
Yeah,
Me too.
you're my number one enemy.
Good.
CJ told me to tell you to pick him up.
Really? Did you?
Yeah.
I'll see what I can do. I love to have him. He's a shooter. And he
Yeah.
plays hard. He gets to the foul line.
Oh
If
God,
dude,
this hard shit.
he plays so hard too. So if I can get him, why you want him on your team?
No, I'm picking the first 2 rounds. I'm picking my cousin and my brother. So I don't think he'll get
Okay.
past round 2. Honestly,
I agree. Because last year he was right around top 5.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, I don't think he'll get past round 2.
That's gonna be interesting. If he's on the board early, I'm gonna try to take him.
You can have him, bro. Honestly,
You can have him. It's crazy. He's a good player.
yeah. I mean, I'll just grab Darian in like the 5th. So
Darian. Oh, yeah, he's not falling to the 5th. I won't let that happen. Darian is one of the best guards in the league. He was easily like a top 3 shooter, and he could do stuff off the dribble. He cooked me multiple times when I let him go left.
it's not hard to cook you, brother. But
I
I'll
watched that, buddy. In that championship game, we were the ones cooking you.
I'm saying I added a couple dudes like that are good. So you're like Darian could fall to the 5th.
Give me
The
your
5th
guys
round?
like player comps.
My player comp, Riv, what do you think?
Peyton Pritchard, no troll.
Get out of here.
I'm dead serious.
Peyton Pritchard, no, definitely not.
High praise for you. I mean, whatever. I play like Devin Harris, no troll.
That's cool. That's funny.
Like a mixture of Devin Harris, Ty Lawson, George Hill.
I
Solid athletic floor general.
I would say my play style is like shit.
I'm telling you, it's Peyton Pritchard, like bar for bar.
I wish it was Darius Garland, but I'm not.
Ty Jerome, that's you. Bingo.
I'll take Ty Jerome.
Bro. Literally, like the little slow acceleration.
Yep,
the
that's
shooting.
me.
Yeah, that's you, bro.
Who I've always, this is a high expectation against a star player. I've always tried to be like Chris Middleton. So that's always been like the way that I play, but I don't have the back to the basket, turnaround, fadeaway, and the mid range scoring that Middleton does.
Mhm.
But like Middleton, I'm like this kind of selective shot creator who can get really hot. But there's also games where my shot may not fall. And so I really do dial in defensively and I do everything else. But for the most part, I'm really a shooter. And then I like to pride myself in being a team first connective decision maker that really is that leader. And I got to have a situation. I'm going to galvanize my troops. And I don't have to be the Robin. I'm a low maintenance star. That's what I am.
What are you,
Derek White?
Derek White, yeah. At times, I could try to morph into him.
Okay. I wish I could play you guys, man. It's too bad we're 2,000 miles apart. So
yeah.
Oh my God, Derek. Yeah, I'm a Batman. I don't know what he's talking about. I'm a Batman.
That's why Riv's team was knocked down the first round of my team's playing championship. So
okay.
It took me a lot to get him there, brother. It took me a lot to get him.
You're automatically in the playoffs.
Yeah, I know that's fair. This year, I think we're only doing 4 teams make it. So good luck.
Good.
Yeah, good luck.
Good.
Well, I think that's a good way to end the show. So, okay, well, this is the end of episode 5 of Objectively Biased. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next week.